Keep your eyes peeled. We definitely have an imposter here.
You see, real strategy requires cunning.
I know where to hit.
Combine Cheddar's really picking up. They know you're coming. You need to get out of here, now. Approaching target. Exposing hostile team 3.
Hey, look out!
Come to me! You can't be serious!
Now, come at me!
No one's gonna stop me now!
I want what you want, but not at any cost. I really hope you make it.
Well, if we know what we gotta do, then all that's left is to go do it.
Or else, goddess be my witness, I will cut you down right where you stand.
It's thanks to everyone who's helped us that we got this far. I won't let their efforts go to waste.
I believe we can get back there if we fight this oppression. If we are fearless against the evils of the world, we can be everything we were.
You sure know how to make an entrance.
You can tell us what the hell is going on here.
Get this man a diaper.
Huh?
Hi everybody, welcome back. So we're down to our final 10. I'm going to read them off in case Mario is not showing. It's Trails of Cold Steel 4, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Last of Us Part 2, Spiritfarer, Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisp, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Doom Eternal, and Half-Life Alyx. Where are we starting, folks?
Animal Crossing.
Doom Eternal.
Bitch.
Animal Crossing.
Bitch.
Get out of here.
Okay, fine. We can do Animal Crossing.
I think the easiest pick. It's like no attack. I can't wait to play this game. But let's talk about Trails. We got in top 10.
No, I think we should talk about Doom.
No,
Yeah, I think we should talk about Doom as well.
2 people on staff have played this game.
I played Doom.
Please, let's talk about Trails.
I agree. I side with Cam. I think we should
let's
have
talk
the
about
Trails.
Spiritfarer. How about that?
I think we should bring Trails. I think we should bring Trails to light because we know
ugly already.
We know it's number 1 on Chris and Scott, I imagine.
Trail stands have been activated.
But like outside of that, like, all right. I think we should talk about trails. I do.
Yeah.
Let's
I didn't bring it up until the top 10, so Scott and Chris would be happy.
There's fewer people who had this number 1 than Persona. For
that's fair. That's bought you some time more.
And Scott, you want to lead off?
Yeah. So let's. We ready to initiate filibuster Cold Steel?
God.
I don't know if Chris is going to.
I really appreciate it. No.
You want to hear my number 1 argument against this game, and you can just respond to this?
No.
Okay.
I want to hear it. I know what it is.
Yeah, I imagine you do.
I get it. Chris and I have only played, and it's really hard to try and rally the forces of this game at the end of like 10 games really pays off.
Holy crap.
Like, it's granted, all the games are fantastic. It's not like you had to wait until this game for everything to like pay off.
Yeah, it's not like we don't have they're good from the start, really.
Okay, so there's no sunken cost fallacy going on here.
No. They're all good. I mean it. I mean that.
Yeah.
And the reason why Trails of Cold Steel 4 stands out so much to us is the fact that 9 games on, they're still holding true. They have kept the characters and the world building at that same high level. They are the same. And it's just building on those connections and that world in such a glorious way that there really isn't anything else of its scope in video games at all. And that's why we like it so much. So we get it. Like, again, I get it. I can't, in good conscience, say this should be Game of the Year for DualShockers. I can't.
Yeah, I can't either.
Absolutely for me.
Yes. We will forever preach this and expect every year that a Trails game is released in the West, you can expect us to bring it to bear, because it will probably go on for another 10 years.
Yo, by the time the new one that just got announced hits the West, hopefully I'm caught up, y'all, and because I really want to get into this series. So,
man, I'm gonna be 40 by that time. You'll be fine.
You know, there was such a filibuster earlier. I've just been playing Animal Crossing footage this whole time, so just pretending. Yeah, cool. Playing Animal Crossing.
But
no, I mean,
no, the fact that it's in the top 10, that I was able to get Ryan to swap out the horrid Godfall character with Green Schwarzer on the thumbnail. Chris and I are fighting the good fight to kind of get this series in general in front of more people and just become aware of Trails in the Sky, Trails of Cold Steel. The fan translations of Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure are fantastic as well. There are ways to play these games, and if we can do a little part or a picture of Reen showing up on a thumbnail and on a more mainline site like DualShockers, if that gets people wondering, ooh, what's the series about? The fact that this is in the top 10 list of our discussion, if that gets a couple more people interested in the series, then we're doing our part. But like Chris said, I can't in good conscience try and force this down everyone's throats for the website. I can't do it. But
I mean, we did this for propaganda, and that's it. You can wipe it.
I mean, speaking personally, and I think speaking for a couple other people here, but like the 2 games that I will say I've definitely picked up this year or that I've looked into at least way more due to just pure evangelizing amongst the crew has been 13 Sentinels, and it has been Trails of Cold Steel. I was not even aware that this franchise was really I mean, I knew about it, but I just like didn't know a whole lot about it until you guys like really were like, holy crap, Trails of Cold Steel 4 is out in a month. I can't wait to play it, blah, 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 blah. And then like since then, I've actually gone back and looked at a lot of the other games. The next time the first one is discounted on PlayStation, I might
Trails in the Sky series and Trails of Cold Steel are all currently on sale for the Steam Winter Sale.
Wonderful.
And I would recommend the Sky probably more for PC than anything else, because they have a few additions there.
Yeah,
and you can only get the first 2 Sky games on PSP.
How much are they?
The third one,
PS4.
I think it's like $20, Mike.
First guy is currently on sale for $10. Second one's on sale for $20. The third one is on sale for $22.
And then they're all normally 30, right?
Something like that. And I don't know what the Cold Steel games are currently on sale for. I know they're on sale. I don't know what they're priced at.
I mean, Logan, if you still have your Vita, you can play them on your Vita.
Could. My friend might let me borrow his Vita TV too.
There you go.
Trails of Cold Steel is currently 40% discounted. So my Australian dollars aren't going to mean anything to you, so I won't use them.
It's like 15 or 20 Cold Steel 1.
Okay.
One thing to know for anyone getting into this series, the first games, whether it's Trails of Cold Steel or Trails in the Sky, do take a while to get going. They are a bit of a slow burn at the beginning, but then they really ramp up. So
I'm scared.
Only like a 5-hour slow burn.
That's like the worst thing you can say.
Yeah, it's like
I know, and it's one of those things. Don't
go.
All right, so it's gone.
Goodbye.
I will say, you guys,
seriously,
if you did your due diligence of getting everybody else more aware of that, then I think you two have been great ambassadors of.
That's all I'm here for.
So
I can go now. See you guys.
Really?
No. Yakuza is still to come.
Okay, but we're not talking about Yakuza. We're talking about Doom Eternal.
Mike!
Mike, you cannot snub me like this.
Out of here already.
I'm showing
we already
footage
know
for Doom
none of us
Eternal.
want us to do. No one wants this game on here. Let's just take Animal Crossing off of it.
I liked Animal Crossing more than Doom Eternal. I would please like to talk about Doom Eternal now.
I'm showing footage. We're talking about Doom.
Okay, Doom it is.
All right, hold on. I got to prepare.
The resident Doom defender has logged on. Let me preface this by saying I love Doom 2016.
I want to preface this as well. I love Doom 2016 as well.
Argument already. You're making the wrong argument.
2016 is so good.
2016.
It is a fun rampage.
So
it's not a raw. It is not an adventure. It is a full-on blood-fueled rampage, and that's not to say that Doom Eternal.
How is Eternal not that?
Doom Eternal does that, but it adds too much, which is something I hate to say to a game. It adds too much. Adds too many arcade features. Much platforming, yes.
Let me preface it. Doom 2016 is like an original, early on Iron Maiden album. Fucking awesome, right? Doom Eternal is their later albums. They're just up their own ass.
You could even say Metallica.
Yeah.
Doom 2016 is one, all right? And then Doom Eternal is Death Magnetic.
Death Magnetic was all right.
You should have chosen a different album.
All right.
Saint Anger. Does everybody hate Saint Anger? We can talk about Saint Anger.
I don't care anymore. That being said, Doom Eternal just.
Here's the thing. You argued the wrong thing, because if you were to have anything wrong with this game, it's the last bosses are terrible.
Yep,
and
you're making that argument.
And I'll say that is me,
that's not why I don't like the game.
I think if there's an argument to have here, those last two bosses are the antithesis of what Doom is. It's terrible.
Can we spoil?
Yeah, absolutely.
Doom. Terrible boss. What is the Icon of Sin?
Oh yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're terrible bosses.
Yeah, my problems are even.
But you could say that about some of the other games on this list also. I think Final Fantasy VII has terrible bosses in that game.
You're insane. You're insane.
We'll come back to that. Doom.
The house does not.
The house is good.
The color boss.
Fight it.
Stop.
Okay, I'll say this: the Icon of Sin and the bosses in Final Fantasy have the exact same problem, in which they're way too long. Yeah, and you just have to keep blasting them away forever.
This entire time for like 20 minutes.
I'll argue this though. Compared to other Doom games, I feel like 90% of the big final boss battles are comparable to Icon of Sin, where you're basically just holding that shoot button and strafing around, because that's all Doom is. But when it's one singular character and you are walking around that one singular character, it all feels like, to me, as someone who loves all those games, the Icon of Sin feels long and drawn out, but that's because the final boss of a bunch of different Doom games feel long and drawn out. Doom 2016 had a great final boss. That's about it.
Again, not arguing that. We are saying that that's the argument.
We're making your arguments for you.
Oh yeah, no,
I agree.
I was adding onto that.
Here's the thing.
Not even the Icon of Sin is the worst one. The worst one is the one before that, where you have to snipe a person's head, which is you don't do that in Doom. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense to do that.
But this isn't a boss of the year discussion. This is a game of the year discussion.
And you're helping my case here.
Doom Eternal sure just takes everything, the fast-paced great action of Doom, and spaces it out with platforming that loses me. It has what's your alternative? At its beginning, it has a very interesting wait, what do you mean what's its alternative?
Do 2016
is my alternative.
Like 2016 is just like those levels. Once you get through a combat encounter, you're walking through a corridor for like a couple minutes instead of platforming, which really is not that bad.
Or the stages once you get into hell that are like vertically built out, and you're like, if you want to find everything in there, you're backtracking a ton around there, and you're not running into enemies anymore. It's like the same old like one or two more. Like it is it is an encounter to an encounter thing, and in between that, if you want to find everything in the environments, both of the games are built out the exact same. Eternal just incorporates more things that lets you get around the environment a bit more. Like you want to talk about platforming, the first Doom had way more sections that was just like jump here and there. Eternal has stuff that is actually like cool and novel, like swinging on the freaking monkey bars and the grab lifts and stuff like that. Like none of that stuff is like what makes the game good, but it is at least different from the past.
But at the same time, does it make? I mean, in terms of like Doom in general, like is that what you wanted in a Doom game?
No,
because that's not what
I
want.
Anybody who's take away from
gameplay that wasn't just walking.
Anybody whose takeaway from Doom Eternal is platforming. I don't know what game. Did we play the same video game? Like this is the thing I cannot rationalize in my head. I've been listening to this discussion, this talking point for 8 months or 9 months. It's making me feel like a crazy person. I ran into Mike about this 2 weeks ago. No, everybody whose takeaway from this game is platforming. What the hell are you talking about? Did we play the same video game?
I have one
string.
The level design is much more vertical. The level design is much more vertical in Doom Eternal.
And sections, I don't think that's true. I think there are sections of the first game that are definitely vertical as well.
And there's just like this really unnecessary traversal stuff where you're just like, oh, there's like this moving thing that you got to grab onto and then jump over to. Like, I don't want to do that shit in Doom. I don't want to do that shit. I would rather walk.
The thing you want, what do you want? The itch you want scratched from Doom Eternal is still in Doom Eternal. Like the things you're arguing against the like 2% of this game that like makes you do that stuff. Like that's the thing I don't understand is that this game is still, you are constantly having these massive engagements with tons of enemies on the screen. And you're in everything's face. And
here's what I'm going to combat you with then. Because you brought this up during Ghost of Tsushima, okay? The way that you talked about the combat in Ghost of Tsushima,
too. I'm going to destroy this argument. Go for it.
In the same way that you basically called the Ghost of Tsushima mode, which is basically just pick this one thing to fight this one enemy, it's the same thing here. It's like I have to do these one simple thing.
That is entirely false. The argument. How am I blowing everything apart with the super shotgun in the whole game? Because I did that. Anytime I saw a freaking Cacodemon or whatever, I didn't automatically be like, oh, I have to get out my grenade launcher attachment and shoot it. No, I just freaking grapple to its face, blow it up, and it's dead. Like, the game allows you to have different ways to take on everything. Yes, it does say, hey, one weapon in your arsenal will interact with this enemy type in this certain way that will allow you to get rid of it more easily. We're throwing that out there. That's a thing you can do. You by no means have to on the same level as Ghost of Tsushima, where it is blatantly, like I said before, it will pause the game and tell you, hey, you need to switch because you're not going to beat this enemy otherwise. Doom Eternal will let you kill anything you want with any of the weapons. And it just gives you, like, if you want to play the game optimally, then you should probably switch to those things. But other than that, like, I'm not switching off the super shotgun that often unless I have no ammo in it.
That's what I was going to follow up with is that, the way that I played Doom Eternal was by following that combat puzzle. The game, it absolutely does have a way that it wants you to play it. Yes, the option is there for you to just go on super shotgun. Once you run out of ammo for it, chainsaw some poor schmuck, get more ammo for it, run on, have a wonderful day. you're going to get bodied if you're playing on the game's higher difficulties that way. It
play on the game's higher difficulties?
Yeah. Played on what was the second to hardest?
I mean, yeah, once you get to the higher difficulties, I believe that for sure.
Yeah.
But if it takes the higher difficulties for that to cave in on itself, then I would say how many people played all the games on this list on its highest difficulties? Who played The Last of Us Part 2 on crushing or whatever? Like, no one did that. Like, so
I literally just put my hand up. I did.
Oh, yeah, just put up his hand, yeah.
I'm speaking from my personal experience with it. Playing it on you know, when it's trying to just push you, when the game comes to push and shove and you don't get to feel like the unstoppable rampaging beast that you are in Doom 2016, the game's combat puzzle kind of wore on me more.
I have to stop now because I have to get help. Oh, now I got to stop and do what I want to do, and then I got to get shield. Then I got to stop, and then I got to get my gas.
So like, okay, so
Animal Crossing.
I don't particularly agree with what Otto's saying because I think that same stuff is in Doom 2016. Like there are parts where like I feel like it, you know, I love Doom 2016, but there are definitely parts where it's just like I feel like I'm like kind of stopped in my tracks for a second, like things like that, where or like on my first playthrough where I don't really know what to expect, like, you know, things like that. But with but another issue I have with Doom Eternal is the Marauder. And when I say the Marauder, I don't mean like how difficult the Marauder is, but how the Marauder is literally the antithesis of all the rules you have been taught throughout the game. And then you get to this boss or like this enemy, and he's just like, all those things that you were taught just do not work. There's like that's not like, none of them are the answer to this enemy. And it just really like kind of like rubbed me the wrong way. Because like, oh,
at the Marauder's pace, not at your pace.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're taught like, oh, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this. And then the Marauder shows up. It's like, oh, you can't do any of that. Like, and it's just, yeah. So that was one of those things that like, you know, eventually I got used to it and figured it out. But like just designed as a enemy, like.
It's a stop sign.
It's yeah, exactly.
But if it was designed the way as all the others, then it would be lumped in the pile of the ones you're complaining about, where it's like, oh well, I would just have to switch to X weapon, and all of a sudden I can take him out, which you also don't like. So like,
oh, I'm not worried about. I don't care about that. I don't care about like, oh, you have to use whatever weapon. Like, I don't think that's true. But like, I do think the Marauder is just kind of like the antithesis of all like everything you were learned up to that point. And again, like I just. For me, like I feel like compared to Doom 2016, I found myself like scaling things, climbing up things, doing things I didn't want to do in a Doom game.
I feel like doing those like climbing things and stuff like that gave you like just a break from fucking metal and
you don't want a break.
Yeah, you
want to keep going.
Why would you want to do fucking metal and fucking shooting monsters?
But did you like the Icon of Sin? Because the Icon of Sin was legitimately 30 minutes of just nonstop. Please put this to an end. I beat Doom Eternal and my head hurt because that final engagement is dragged out so long. Partially because the boss sucks, but it is what like Chris said. It's a good pacing thing to intersplice. Like, okay, here's a massive engagement. Okay, let's break that up with a couple minutes of moving to the next objective.
You can do that while still having enemies there, like that enemies that like, you know, like simple to kill enemies or like things to make you still like not just like feel like you're completely at a stop, but you're just slowing down.
I think those are still sprinkled in though. I also think that those moments, those platform moments, are there to like help you like appreciate some of the like set dressing that they give you too. A lot of them are always there, and they give you like, oh, look at this cool looking skybox. Look at fucking, I don't know.
The scale of this game is insane.
I will grant you that. I will absolutely grant you that there is a part of like one section of a level where you're climbing up like this massive ancient Titan demon's horn, and that was undeniably fucking badass. Doom, the entire like Doom 2016 and Eternal. I'll give Eternal this even much prettier to look at, much more fun to look at, much more interesting to look at.
More variety in the environments as well.
Just going back to the
things. Go ahead, Charlie.
Going back to the whole like pacing things and the kind of like filling things out with like, because again, I do think that 2016's biggest problem was its variety and pacing, and I think that complaining about the platforming and stuff, like Have any of you guys played the DLC? Because the DLC is exactly what you were all asking for, and it is not as good, in my opinion.
I've yet to play this game.
Honestly, I don't really know what much more to say. It's just something because Doom Eternal was one of my most anticipated games this year, and because I love Doom 2016, and when I finished it, I was like, well, that's like one of the most disappointing Bs I've played in a minute. Like something about it just did. Like I think it's still a good game. It's just one of those things where something it might be something completely different that I just can't think of that just didn't click with me.
You might have just been used to what this new Doom would be what I would hypothesize. That would be my guess, because it is a lot of those same mechanics carrying over, but it just
I was gonna say, like, the one thing that I think someone could say, and again, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think someone could say that, like, it's more like you had like Doom 2016 like kind of changed shooters, in my opinion, like that it was kind of like the highest of highs for shooters.
Absolutely.
And it still is. And when Doom Eternal came out, I don't think it made that same impression, and I don't think it ever was going to. And maybe it comes down to expectations, right? Because Doom 2016 was such like a big thing for shooters.
It came out and no one had any faith in it. Like, people were like, this is probably going to be bad because Doom 4 was in development hell forever. Like, this is probably not going to be great. Reserve your expectations. And then it comes out and everybody's like, oh my gosh, you got to go play Doom. Play Doom right now. Like,
and then Doom Eternal comes out, and it's not, I don't think it's all the same, but it's more of that Doom 2016 thing. I think it improves on its combat systems, like, exponentially. Like, I think the whole, like, the platforming parts that people are complaining about, I think those are like integrated into combat in such smart and awesome ways. And I think the environment, like every environment, every encounter is a puzzle, and you are just solving that puzzle in what most effective way you can. And you have to think on the fly. It's not like, oh, you can take like a second to think. You have to think on the fly. And I think it's just an incredibly different experience for a shooter than.
Can I chime in with something totally different real quick?
Let me just say my piece to say that while I have a lot of problems with this game, I do want to say that I do enjoy the fact that I think it is a polished game. I don't want to designate that at all. I will say my major complaint about this one specifically is that I just think that it went too far in a certain direction where I wish it just sort of met me in the middle. Like Doom 2016 to me, like you're saying, was a surprise because everyone. Hold on.
Then the argument would be
you're just going to talk more. Let me just finish.
That's what Doom is.
I'm just saying my piece, and then I'm going to piece out. I just want to say the piece, and I'm piecing out. That's all I'm trying to say. 2016 is in the way that you were saying, is that no one had an expectation, and when it met a certain meter, it was like, oh, that's great. I just think that they went from there, but instead of actually just going a little further, I think they were just trying to shoot over the moon, and I just don't think they shot it that successfully by adding all those
Mars
things.
Instead.
Exactly. That's all I'm saying. Now I'm going to peace out because I don't need to say
Doom
anything more about
Eternal was and is a fantastic game.
That's literally kind of what I want to say.
The other thing,
not the par.
I don't like. I think like this is not even me exaggerating. I think the middle 6 to 8 missions of this game are the best shooter campaign I've ever played in my life. Like, and I think Mike's even right there with me. Like, this game's roughest parts are the ending and the beginning, where it tutorializes too much and it holds your hand. And those early stages are like, you know what this game is ramping up towards, and those early stages don't ramp up that quickly to get to that point. And then the later stages get bogged down with too much of the poor boss design. That middle chunk of the game, though, where it just keeps ramping up, it keeps ramping up, it keeps ramping up. And I think the thing that a lot of people who like the original Doom more that I've talked to, they like, similar to what we talked about last night, Chris, where it feels like it is a concept album within the sense that it is like, okay, this is all in hell, all on Mars. It is all like you're navigating this same environment, and it is like building on itself in that way. Doom Eternal, it just keeps raising the stakes of like insanity and stupidity and hilarity. Like the thing I want to bring up,
my thing is it went too far. That's just my opinion on it. That's all I'm saying.
The story and the lore in this is like equal parts awesome and hilarious, and it unites the entire Doom franchise.
It is actually surprisingly good.
Other than Doom 3 now makes sense with how it fits together, which is like not the thing I expected to happen coming into this game. I didn't expect to come in and be like, wow, now I understand Doom lore.
Yeah.
Like, this was the only game I cannot, like, back in the day, I used to read all the BioWare Codex stuff. I don't do that stuff anymore. It just doesn't interest me. This was the one game I have played in the past couple years where I was reading every single scrap of information that I was coming over. It was interesting.
I want to know what the fuck is going on. Wow, that's cool. These levels, these worlds.
Fascinating.
Holy shit, is this heaven?
You kill an angel at the end, and then I think God yells that, like, like that happened. I think we should talk about another game. Personally,
but also like
we've gone into the thing with like
what Michael was saying earlier about the puzzles in the environment. Like that's not what I want to do in a Doom game.
This game, like, that stuff is in the original game. Like, I don't understand this idea that Doom 2016 was like you get into it and you start fighting stuff and you don't stop fighting until the credits roll. I don't like go play the game again. Like, it is not like that. The pacing and the spacing between, like, that platforming and jumping around, given the environments weren't as big and the levels weren't as large, but it was still there. Like, this game has you going around massive environments way more. Like the Mars level where you're looking to blow a hole in the middle of Mars and you're out in space. You're jumping around across these different rocks and stuff like that, and you're like in the upper atmosphere of Mars, basically. And so that map is huge. Same with the Heaven level towards the very end. Those levels are huge in that sense.
Maybe I just don't like that it got too big in scope. I don't know, but like I have no reason to lie about how I feel about this game. It just did not click with me. I think Doom 2016 is a way better game overall. I do think that there was obviously some quality of life improvements in Doom Eternal, but it just did not meet expectations.
Like, again, like
maybe people in 2020 just prefer to shoot stuff than puzzles.
Apparently.
I mean,
like,
it's not.
I don't like Doom. I don't like Doom, period, but I have no stake in this, so.
All right, I mean, like,
I don't know, maybe.
The thing I will say, I'll leave it on this kicker. Because as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this, and a lot of this is because I have not said a word about this game really since I reviewed it. Everybody acts like I have been standing this game hard. I reviewed this game in a bubble, played it alone, came out, posted my review, and then waited to see what everybody else said in the aftermath. And the consensus is, or maybe not from everybody, again, it's just like one of the highest reviewed games of the year, and a lot of people like it. But I've seen more people align with Cam's opinion of like, wow, this game's disappointing, I don't like this. Or Cam and Otto, and like, I've seen that consensus for months now, and I've not really said anything in response. And my response to it would be, I think you're insane, and I don't understand, and I think you have poor taste. Like, that's the end of it. Like, I don't, like, I'm like legitimately.
And this is coming from a man that has never seen any of the Fast and the Furious movies.
I'm legitimately like beyond myself. Like, this is the most animated I'll get all night, but like I am like beside myself in confusion, and like I don't get it. This game is so much better with the things that you like from the first game, which is the combat. It is so much better.
Here's my last analogy for you, Logan. This is my last analogy for you.
You're getting distracted by the things that it did a little bit more of, but that's not the game.
Doom 2016 is Fast and the Furious. Doom Eternal is if you just jumped all the movies and went straight to the last one. I think you'll love those movies. This is me just vouching you to watch those movies. You should just go watch all the Fast and Furious.
I mean, but it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Because if they didn't up the ante like this crazy for the second one, and they were just like, oh, it's like Doom 1.5 or whatever, people would be like, oh, this is underwhelming. They didn't even do that much else.
Yeah, if it was only the barest iteration or just more of the same, they would have been, lambasted for that. I agree.
This one, they're like, fuck it, let's unite all the Doom games, create a connected Doom saga, and have you introduce God into the lore, and maybe you'll fight him down the road. There you go. And I don't know.
I'm honestly I'm with you on this, Logan. More so, like, I can understand where the 2016 thing is, because, again, I agree that 2016 is, like, a more coherent, cohesive package. Like, everything about it is unified in design, tightly, and, that's great. Like, it really does come together really well. Eternal is not that unified because it's so sprawling out, and some of it does not land as highly, but the highs are fucking high. really fucking high. There is no shooter combat I have had as much fun with as Doom Eternal, to the point where I really struggle to go back to Doom 2016 as much as I love that game.
I tried to go back afterward as well.
More fun to play. Eternal is just more fun to shoot stuff with. I enjoy the rhythm of the combat puzzle. Like, I don't feel that hemmed in with it, but even so, the fact that it is done that way is almost like, you know, it's balancing in a way. It's like, how close can we get you to the edge of failure while still maintaining that you feel like a total badass? And
every single combat in that counter in that game makes you feel like it's going to be the one that you lose, and you never do. Or like, at least for, I mean, some of them do finally beat you.
Yeah,
but like for me, it was like,
and you're like, oh, that was awesome.
Yes,
that's how I felt the whole way through, basically after the first couple levels.
If it means anything to you, Logan, after this, I'm probably going to end up downloading Doom Eternal and playing through it again.
I will say that I'll end it on this: we can kill it. I just don't understand.
Like, at the end of the day,
I just don't get it. And like I said, I'm way more passionate about this. I'm not mad at anybody here. I'm not mad at all. But like, I have not responded to the other side of this document, and it has been stewing within me for 9 months. And I needed to say my piece.
We are your therapy, Logan. Let it out.
I was gonna say, like, I'm with Logan. Like, I think this game's really incredible, but I'm also like, I'm fine with cutting the losses on Doom Eternal.
No one here thinks it's a bad game. No one here thinks it's a bad game.
Yeah, I know that.
That's not the point. Yeah,
it's more just like you don't see it as an upgrade from a mechanical level compared to.
I do.
Like, I do, but I see it gone too far. That's just me. That's all I've said.
No, that's not me. I think it's like mechanically, like, again, those quality life things, I think 100% are valid. But there's just something that Eternal does that, or like that 2016 does that Eternal doesn't have, or vice versa. And I guess I just can't put my finger on it or something, but it just didn't.
I think it's what Chris said, and its uniformity, right? Like, it feels like it's all, I don't know, like Chris is better at talking.
Chris took everything that we said and made it sound beautiful.
Yeah, whatever Chris said, I think that's the reason.
I think we need to take it down a notch and talk about Animal Crossing.
I was going to say, if I'm going to hell, I'm dragging Tom Nook with me.
You know, that's totally acceptable.
You're going to hit F and glory kill that motherfucker. Let's go.
I don't think there's anyone here that would argue that Animal Crossing is their game of the year, if not just a very...
I named my dog after Isabel, so...
Is it...
Like,
but was it Isabel?
Yes, my dog's name is Isabel.
No, I'm saying, was she named Isabel because of this game?
Oh.
I named her Isabel because there's a dog in the game called Isabel. Yes.
Ryan, I know you're probably one of the biggest proponents of this here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Animal Crossing.
I'm sorry, just going from Doom to this and like being like,
they came out on the same day.
And let's just demonstrate the point. It's pacing. It's pacing.
They came out at the same time. It makes sense. No, it came out at the same time, and obviously, Animal Crossing. I think people really latched onto because like it came out right at the height of the pandemic, and this kind of became the pandemic game of 2020. And I think it's definitely Animal Crossing is not my top game of the year pick for sure, but I think it definitely is, especially this year. I think like we said with some of the other games, like it's one of the most important games of this year just because of what it brought to people during this time. So again, it's not one I think I'm necessarily going to fight for the top game of the year pick, but I do acknowledge that it's a great game. Like, it's really good, and I think especially in the year of 2020, it's a game that has really stood out this year.
It's because we won the election. We had Joe Biden Island. It was great.
Gary Whitta.
Hold on.
God, yeah.
Dude, time.
No.
I knew this was going to happen. Go for it.
I mean, who do you think mailed this one in?
I say Rachel.
It's probably Rachel.
No, Rachel's got a very specific one.
Oh, true. Yeah. What am I saying?
Oh, God. Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Benjamin Bayless says Animal Crossing New Horizons launched on the heels of a global pandemic and turned out to be the perfect way to keep everyone connected while in lockdown. Following that, personally, the game fell off my radar for a few months after due to having to focus on other game launches and personal life started to weigh me down. But since jumping into it back again, Since jumping back into it again in late November, I've started to feel the game's magic come back, and for a brief moment, the stresses of reality have become lessened. I think there's much that it doesn't do well: terraforming, item customization limitations, internet connectivity with others, etc. But there's no denying that it's a fantastic game about connecting with others without having to resort to violence.
Yeah, he's right.
I'm gonna say everything except that last part could also be applied in a different case that does it better. And that would be Dungeons and Dragons.
And I mean, it is kind of like Among Us, except Among Us, you do violent things.
That's actually a point that I was going to make.
Did you say Dungeons and Dragons isn't violent?
No,
that's why I said outside of the exception of that last part.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Camilla?
But you could play D&D with.
I was going to say, I think it was Otto who said it earlier about Among Us, that it just came at like the right time.
Yeah,
and I think everyone just sort of latched onto that game just as a form of catharsis and sort of hanging out with your friends, and like it was just kind of the only way you can do it. I definitely don't think it's going to stack up to like the other ones that are still here, but I do think it deserves to be within that group. But it's definitely not like it's on my personal top 10 list, but not in the top 5. But it definitely deserves to be like in the discussion. Because of just because of the impact that it had this year, and when it came out, it just kind of worked out in its favor, honestly.
Right place, right time. But would we be talking about it if it wasn't?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think it is.
I think we would.
I think it is absolutely like the most notable game of the year, but like no one here is passionate about it. I know. Even Ryan said it's beneath other things that he has.
It's a good game, but it's definitely not going to be like my top choice. But I do think it is a good game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was bolstered by the time at which it launched. It was bolstered by the circumstances, but it is still not just an Animal Crossing game. It is the best Animal Crossing game to release. I like it more than like Wild World, my dude.
Ricky's clearly a Happy Home Designer fan. Clearly,
Ricky really likes Pocket Camp.
not to. I mean, so we're gonna wipe this. What it seems like, but who else? Has things? Did you want to say anything, Ricky?
No.
Or Charlie.
Yeah, I just wanted to put this out there. I was talking to Cam, and I think Otto was there too at this point. But we were in the Discord earlier talking, and basically we were talking about how management sims don't really do it for Cam, and I don't like management sims. That is a genre that I, in fact, generally try to avoid. And I think even if for the people who are in this call and watching this video who have not given it a chance, I think Animal Crossing does a fantastic job of kind of jumping over the blocks that management sim games tend to have in a really awesome way. Well, again, I don't even know if it's in my top 5. I think it might be. I think it might be number 5 for me. I still think that like if management sims aren't your thing, or if you didn't get a chance to try this out, you really should, regardless.
This is a game that never is on preview every year where I would ever give this a shot. But this was the one time where I felt like I needed something like this, and I gave it a shot, and I really enjoyed it for many months. I think I played it probably 6 months straight. Which is actually pretty impressive for a game like this. It touched me in the right places where in terms of I needed something quiet, I need something calm. And a lot of few games that we've talked about previously about this has done this, like Solitary Conspiracy done that for me. There was another game that I was just playing that was just, Tetris Effect Connected. That also did the same thing where I just needed something relaxed. And this was one of those games. So I commend it for that, but I don't think it didn't make my top 10, I don't think personally though.
Yeah, I literally attended like a birthday party for a friend of mine in Animal Crossing, like just in the midst of the pandemic, and we were just hanging out, and it turned into chaos because they turned on basically everyone has tools, so we just ended up digging holes on their island just to fuck with them, and that was our way of having fun and just enjoying each other's time and just causing chaos, and and then on the other side of that, like. Sometimes it's nice to just build stuff with your friends and just like chill, and just it's very just low impact, sort of low stress, and which is a lot of what everyone kind of needs these days. So I think that's very much what people latched onto with Animal Crossing, and it's a great game, and I always go back to it every now and then and still enjoy myself.
Yeah, the creativity of it was also great. Also, the fact that you could actually input real photos into the game, and then they could be your wall art. So I just had a bunch of e-girls and e-boys all over my room. It was great. Special day.
So I have wiped it. So we're down to
we're left with the big boys.
All right. I was gonna say personally, I think we should talk about Half-Life Alyx again. I think it's time to make a break.
Well, there's another game that we haven't even talked about yet.
There's like
a few games we still haven't talked about yet.
Okay, there's like it's very obvious what the final four are going to be. So let's talk about the three that we need to talk about, I think. And we could start with Half-Life Alyx, because I don't think anybody sees that advancing to the final four. There
is a game in our that we all are thinking it's like the top four that I honestly would like to talk about before we get to that point.
I have a feeling I know which one it is, and I'm
not trying to be like hostile. Like I'm just like,
for sure.
It's just a game that like I'm not saying now. Like I think we should talk.
No, let's do Ori and Half-Life. Let's talk about them, because I think we all are in agreement that they're gonna go, but we're getting down to it. Half-Life we talked about previously. I don't know if there's anything else we want to say.
No, I mean, because really, like, Ricky and I are probably the only two. They're the only two that have actually really, played this game or whatever. And yeah, I know it's not going to make it.
I mean, this game has legitimately got me looking to spend $400 to $500 purely to play it, because I like Half-Life that much, and I need to play this.
I mean, like, personally, like, this is my passion vote for Game of the Year. I think this game is phenomenal in everything it does, just from a storytelling standpoint, from a technical standpoint. Like, everything it does is, I think, phenomenal, and there's really very little issues that I have with it. I acknowledge that it's not going to make it, but I'm glad it got this far, so I'm happy with that.
This might be where my stimulus money goes. I'm just putting that out there. I guess you guys kind of sold me.
Thank you.
Well, apparently Trump might be vetoing it, so who knows what the stimulus package will be at this point.
You heard me.
So.
Okay.
Hold the video.
Don't play music or we're felon.
Here's the thing. Here's what I want to say about Ori. As of right now, with the 6 games that are left, that is in my top 50% of what I would vote for. Like, I think Ori.
I think I'm there with you.
I'm with you.
I think Ori needs to stick around. I legitimately think Ori needs to stick around.
Then the one we got to talk about, I think, is Spiritfarer, because I think we're putting it off because
I agree as well.
I can talk about Spiritfarer. But the game that I legitimately want to talk about, like the next game I would cut off this list for me personally, is Yakuza.
You're wrong.
I want you to explain to me how I want you to explain explain it to me.
I didn't think we get here.
No, let's rewind. Are we going on to Ori, or because I agree with you, it would be in my top half of the list that is remaining.
I think Ori should stick around too. Now that I know that people are actually passionate about it.
There's some games that we haven't talked about at all yet. You know what I mean? Even Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I know that like.
All right, let's just talk about the whole list. Hades is going to make it pretty far, I think. Final Fantasy is going to make it to late discussions. Last of Us will probably make it to late discussions. Yeah. So we've got Yakuza, Spiritfarer, Ori. Yakuza, I feel like is going to make it pretty far too. But I feel like the outliers are Spiritfarer and Ori.
I don't mind talking about Spiritfarer, but like I do really want to talk about Yakuza. And I honestly wanted to like pretty early on, but I knew that a lot of people were championing that game.
I feel like
you know where you work.
Oh, no. Should we get to that stream?
So with Spiritfarer, I
love you guys. Holy shit.
I'm gonna take my glasses off in case I cry. With Spiritfarer, a big reason why this game really struck a chord with me is because I played it shortly after my dad passed away. And it was very therapeutic in that sense. And I think that the game, as a whole, I'm not going to deny that there are issues with that game, whether it come to pacing. I experienced a few bugs in the game. That was honestly the thing that stopped me from giving it a 10. Things like that. But I think that just like the way it handles the themes of death in general is the best I've ever seen in a video game. I think that just it made me think about my dad in a completely new light. It made me think about like not just about like how I feel now that I know that like I'm never going to see my dad again, but what does he like you know just like with the concept of like there is something after death, and what is he feeling? What is he dealing with? Like what are his regrets? Like what is the way that he like, does he wish he could do things differently? Like he wish he could have done things differently, like whether it be like with his relationship with me or his relation, like anything. And I'm sorry. And it's just, I think it does it in such a like powerful, realistic way, while still making it feel again therapeutic based off its art style and like the just like the direction that game takes. And it just it makes a very hard topic to deal with like comfortable in a way that I've never experienced in a video game before. And I think it's a hopefully special game. And I know that I wasn't gonna, you know, I thank you guys for allowing it to get this far. But you know, I understand that it needs to go. I just thank you guys for letting it get this far.
Yeah, this is one I haven't had the chance to play yet, but definitely I think of most of the games we've had in this list. Like this is one I'm really looking forward to playing. Probably sometime in the new year. Just based especially on the like Cam said, like just the way that this game handles a really like heavy, difficult topic, but does it in a very sort of like not sad way, but just like in a really like hopeful, sort of uplifting way, in a very like emotional way. And especially because I also love Thunder Lotus Studios, the developer that made this game. They've done like their past games have also been really phenomenal. So yeah, this is one that's definitely like high on my list to play. And obviously I wish I could support it for Game of the Year for this year. But yeah, I think heading into next year, it's one I'm definitely really looking forward to playing when I get the chance.
I'll say
I would.
I'll say to Cam's credit too. Like I know you've been very high this year on like I know you were like really happy that you got to review like Assassin's Creed last month and stuff like that. I think your Spiritfarer as your former editor is like I think that's the best thing you wrote this year. And so I would definitely encourage anybody who's listening to go check out your review on that from a couple months back, because you definitely put into words a lot of the same things you just expressed here. And I think you do a great job of just encompassing that game's themes to coincide with what you have experienced in your personal life throughout this year. And I think you do a really excellent job of that in that piece. So, yeah.
But yeah, and I think that like, I wish I kind of, I thought about it, even though I probably wouldn't have voted for it in like as the winner, but like for best moments of 2020, like anytime you take someone to the Evergate in that game is just incredibly special. You get like these final words from these characters that are going into this unknown, and it's really beautiful and really special game. So thank you guys for letting it stick around this long, but we can say goodbye now.
I think
real quick though is I have to say that if this was a best graphics of the year, this would probably take my top. Like I think
I voted
this game captured the look of like hand-drawn animation better than any game I can think in recent memory. I like the animations, the music, and while I didn't sink too much time into like I played for about a week or so and then I kind of had other things I had to switch to, but something I always come back to is how fantastic this game looks and the music behind it and how kind of peaceful and serene and calm this is. Spiritfarer is a very special game that everyone should definitely check out.
It's on Game Pass, so
yeah,
like
it's a very good game as an art form game.
Is it on the
very
it is on
it's also on Game Pass.
It's on Game Pass.
Yeah.
It is very interesting, and it speaks to Spiritfarer as again
like Scott said, games as an art form. Every game is meant to elicit some kind of emotional reaction. And the fact that Cam, it struck this deeply with you is a testament to its ability to do just that. It's also somewhat interesting that it comes in the same year as another game that tackles death in a much, much more negative light.
Yakuza, right?
And I was going to say, like, I do not like management sims because this is a management sim for anyone who doesn't know what Spiritfarer is, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. So
I will caution. I think the game is good. I don't want to crap on it, but I will caution people that like management sims that this isn't what you're looking for in that terms. I'm not saying it's bad.
Yeah, no.
I just want to caution people who like management sims.
100%. I agree with what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about Ori because I feel like if we're fine with that, I know you wanted to do Yakuza, Cam, but I feel like that's going to be another.
That's going to drag out.
That's going to be a ball that that's going to be something we unravel for a bit. I can say my piece on Ori if that's okay. I think this is the second best Metroidvania I've ever played in my life, behind only Castlevania Symphony of the Night. That's how passionately I feel about this one. The first game didn't click with me on the same way that this one did. I think it's a good game, but I just did not come away from it getting the extreme level of praise for Blind Forest. This one was like, I don't know, man. Something about this one. I mean, it's just everything. It's the complete package of what this game is.
It fixed all the bad mechanics of the first game.
Yeah, I didn't think the mechanics were bad, but the platforming definitely feels 1,000 times better. It would be it's like a Doom to Eternal jump in a similar sense.
I should clarify. I mean, like mechanics isn't like the controls are better, like much more fluid. Like I don't feel like, because I felt like in Blind Forest, I consistently died due to things that were not my actual control.
Yeah.
And I think that when I play Will the Wisps, like outside of some very few instances, like all of my deaths were my own fault. And I'm like, oh, yep, I died. Let's do this again, like type of thing.
I think like based on the soundtrack, is that what you said?
I said the soundtrack is also fantastic.
The soundtrack is amazing. Yeah, I think the soundtrack is like
one of my. Has this game been fixed? Just curious.
Yeah.
But I had no issues.
I think it got fixed with the new Xbox launch.
It's been fixed for a while.
Yeah, it's been
fixed for a long time.
It came out in like February or March, so I think it's been fixed.
March.
Yeah, so like the story in this, like, I've not played Yakuza, but of the games left on this list story-wise, like this is far and away, I think, the game that tells the best story, which is strange because it's not a story-heavy game in some senses. But the storytelling that is there is like, and I don't even use this comparison loosely because I know that it's like, I think people downplay this and use this comparison a lot, and I don't, because I know that this company is on another level, but it really like gave me Pixar vibes with a lot of this. Like I think the storytelling is very much in line with what that studio does, and it elicits emotion from you in a way that doesn't rely on like dialogue or writing or anything like that. It is very much the visuals and the music, and it really tells just an incredible visual story. And then all of its merits as a Metroidvania, like I said, like this only matches up. The only thing that matches up with this in my mind is Symphony of the Night. I think that is the best Metroidvania I've ever played, but this is like number 2 in my mind. This is like a top 3 game for me, I would say, this year. I adored everything about this game, and I didn't expect to either. Like I dove into it kind of like, oh, let's see what's up with this, and like it grabbed me potentially harder than anything else this year. So,
I guess between you, Logan and Cam, I enjoyed Blind Forest, I guess, more than you guys, but Will of the Wisp basically took everything in that game and either improved on it or just scrapped things that didn't work and just made new mechanics that just fit way better. It is a gorgeous game. The sound design's amazing, the music is amazing, and that very Pixar vibe. Is just it's strong, and it's like very much like the first like 10 minutes of Up. For most of it, it's just gonna hit you hard, and I just remember being surprised by how just like emotionally invested I was between like this little owl who like doesn't speak. There's no dialogue. The only real dialogue that is there is like this little narration that comes and goes here and there. But it's definitely in my top few on my personal list. I did love it for sure, and yeah, I'm glad that it's getting some recognition for it.
The villain, I think they do a fantastic job of characterizing as well and providing a backstory. Again, no dialogue or really anything. Like it really, they know how to flesh that stuff. You feel compelled by everything you are doing in this game, even though it is the way it is compelling you is not in traditional senses.
I also like that. I never felt, because in a lot of, I'm not really into Metroidvanias all that much, but the thing that I liked about this was that my problem with Metroidvanias for me is that I always feel stuck at some point. It's the reason why I'm not like huge on like Metroid, or like I actually have played Symphony of Night I think earlier this year, and I did like that game. I didn't beat it though, but I liked what I played of it. But what are you saying, Siri? Shut up.
Seriously, I agree. You're a fucking liar.
I just became an iPhone user this year, and it's not terrible. It's actually all right. But anyway, yeah, like what I like about it was that like I never felt stuck ever. Like I never felt like if I came to a halt somewhere, I kind of felt like I knew where I should go afterwards. Like it never felt like I was at some stopping point and I had to figure it out and use big brain in order to get past it. Like I was able to figure it out myself and, kind of just go about my day. It never happened. The only part some of the bosses I think are pretty weak. I think that's really my one bad takeaway from it. I did not like that's kind of a spoiler. I don't know if I should say that. I don't like
final boss. Is it the final boss? Is that what you're talking about?
It is not the final boss. I actually like
the friend that becomes a foe.
The friend that becomes a foe. I did not like that boss fight. I thought it was really bad.
Okay.
Okay.
They also injected combat into this game, which I thought worked really well.
That's the thing, though. I think the combat worked incredibly well. It's just mostly the boss fights I thought were pretty weak. Even like the spider boss fight, I think was pretty not great. I know Cam, you were saying stuff about that too. You were saying you weren't too hot on it either.
So for my stuff with Ori, I just want to say in general, like I agree with Logan. Like this is probably I haven't played Symphony of the Night, but like I think this is probably the best Metroidvania I've ever played. Period. I think that the Wellsprings area of the game is some of the best level design I've experienced in a Metroidvania or any sort of platformer in general. It's absolutely phenomenal. I think that I think just overall the story's really, really good. And echoing everything Logan said, my issues with the game is it's still, which was the one issue they didn't fix from Blind Forest, is that the checkpoint system is very inconsistent. I feel like where it's there's some times where I like do a lot, die, and then get sent back super far. And I'm like, why was there not a checkpoint at that at some point? And then there's other times where it's like I'll hardly move at all or progress at all, and then I'll get a checkpoint. I don't know. It seemed really inconsistent based off how, how I progress through the game. And then the boss fights. I like the boss fights, but there were some just design choices that I really I was upset with or frustrated with. Specifically, I didn't mind the friend to foe boss. That was honestly probably my favorite of the like three big ones. The spider boss. My issue with the spider boss was that the actual boss didn't do much damage to you, but when she sends out her kids, they two-shot you, and I'm like, what the hell? You're the boss, and then the smaller ones are the ones that are actually killing me. It was really, I don't know. I just thought that was a really weird design there. And then the final boss, oh my god, it took me forever to beat that one.
That one took me a while, yeah.
Yeah, and granted, I played the game on hard because I normally play my games 1 up off of normal, but that boss took me like an hour. Like I was like, what the hell? It was so hard, but it was really good too. I think it's a really great game. Again, like it's in my top 5 for this year. I really wish I played it earlier than when I did, so I could have talked about it more throughout the year. But and again, like with these 5, like it's
the outlier. I think it's the outlier. Personally,
I don't think so. I think
I would vouch for it more, but I know
it's the runner-up pick for me. It's the runner-up pick for me at this point.
Okay, so we can opt to keep it if we want. If we want to keep it at 5,
there are 4 games we haven't even talked about yet.
That's fine. Then let's do it.
Granted, it's like we all like know that those are the 4 that we're gonna lay it down with, like down to. But that doesn't mean that it has to be those 4. Okay. You know,
everybody buckle up.
Let's start with this one then, because I'm probably the only one who's really keen on it in this room. Let's talk about The Last of Us Part 2.
I also really like The Last of Us Part 2.
I really like The Last of Us Part 2.
In terms of like, the one out of this list that I would like to see be number 1 is The Last of Us Part 2.
You are also not alone there.
Yeah, you're not the only one. I know that.
Okay.
Mike, would you like to start off then?
I guess I'm gonna just talk more or less in like for personal how I felt of it rather than like in scope like how it's great.
Hey, can I throw one thing out there real quick?
Yeah, sure. Can you?
I'm gonna start comparing and contrasting a lot of these now, personally.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Because it's time to pit them all against one another.
Absolutely. I think so for Naughty Dog games, for me, my relation with them, I like them generally. I always have a problem with their combat. I think their combat is usually fucking awful. I think The Last of Us Part 2 actually fixed like everything about it, and I actually love it as a stealth action game. I think it's actually like incredible what they do, and a lot of it has to do. I think a lot of it is mechanically, but also how, just like how the environments are designed, like just everything about like how they designed that game is just like incredible on just that level. Like storytelling wise, like I could see the problems why people don't like it. Personally, I really liked the journey between the two. I like that they tell the story of Ellie, who you know and you want to root for in the beginning, and then by the end of it, you're like, I don't know who the hell to vote for. And they give that other side of like, oh, here's your enemy's take on this certain situation. And maybe the execution on it wasn't great, but I like that they took the risk of like trying to tell that story. I think not a lot of people would do that otherwise. I think that's a really risky thing to do, and I think they did it and did it pretty well for the most part. And yeah, I think it's one out of all of these games on this list. I think it's like a technical achievement than anything else on this list. It like for me, like 100%. Doom 2016 to me was like a technical marvel for me. I thought that game was incredible, and to this day, I still think it's like technical achievement. This is for me this year. The Last of Us Part 2 is that game.
Yeah.
And again, like and like I said, and those are the things that are important for me. Like for me, games that I like, what is important for me for a video game is that if it plays well, I have fun doing it, and also like if it's just like it doesn't feel broken or anything like that. And I feel like in that sense, I think The Last of Us Part 2 is that. And again, like story wise, like there are things about it that I don't even like about it, and I know there are big problems with it or whatever, but like I thoroughly enjoyed the journey that Ellie had and that Abby had throughout that entire thing. So also Jesse's the best, and he should be character of the year.
100%.
I really shout out to Jesse. I really missed that play.
Don't worry,
Jesse's a homeboy. R.I.P. I poured a shot for him.
What is good, Scott?
I've been holding on to this.
Here comes a Doom Eternal
discussion. Because I still got some good shit to say about it too. Continue.
No, we didn't, because I didn't get to say my chance because everyone was like, okay, now we're done for the night because we've been talking about Last of Us for like 2 hours. And then we were going to do like a separate podcast, and we never did it. No. So I've been holding in my Last of Us anger.
Oh, Scott's going nuclear. Game. I remember.
Logan, get ready to hit that button.
Let's fucking go.
Okay. So, it's a technical masterpiece. I think it's a gorgeous game. I think what it's done for accessibility in game is nothing short of magical and fantastic. Like all their accessibility options, bar none, the best of the year. I think they knocked it out of the park. Abby angers me. I think a lot, like, her relationship with the two characters that she pairs off with is not earned. I think it is very kind of sudden, considering they've had such a war with this group of people for so long, with just like a single night and be like, okay, we're kind of buddy now because we kind of helped each other out. I think that wasn't earned. I think that was kind of random. I think that last part of the game was bullshit and should not have been there, period. Where they go off, where Ellie goes off to the other place.
It's the epilogue. We'll just call it the epilogue.
Yeah, I think that was garbage and should have just been saved for Last of Us Part 3. I think it was just rehashing things, and I don't think it added anything to the game. My personal opinion.
Can I interject one thing?
Sure.
Sorry. I think spoilers can be in play for this one if we wanted to, because I think everybody here has played it. This one is the one exception on the list I think we're okay with. Final Fantasy will probably have to get into some stuff too.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there if you do want to say that.
Yeah.
Say what you want to say, Scott.
Patrick Swayze, have you played this game yet? Oh, okay, good.
Thanks, Patrick Swayze.
Thanks, Patrick.
You're the true star here.
That's right.
But no, I think I love the part of Ellie's gameplay where she first gets Seattle. I want to say.
Yeah, Seattle day one.
It's where it's the wide open area and she can explore the buildings and kind of find things. I was like, when I hit that, I was like, oh hell yes, I am all about this. And it was like the really only area you could do that. And I was like, this very much makes me sad.
I feel like you could do that.
It's a horrible game.
Yeah, you can actually do a lot of that still out throughout the game, but continue, Scott.
It's never on the same scale.
It's not on the same level, and I think it's more
never on the same scale.
I think it's more because the environments once you get to day 2 and day 3 are so much more confined, so you don't get that like scope of like that giant field with this giant ass building, and stuff like that. And I think that's more of why it doesn't feel like on that same.
There's still multiple levels to them. Like there are different ways that you can approach certain things in certain arenas and certain areas, but I do agree it's not as massive as like riding with a horse and you have this giant field. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I like that. I could look to the side. Shoot.
Sorry, because I feel like I'm the only one who actually didn't like that part. When everyone got to that part of Last of Us Part 2, any of those bigger, wide, linear areas, do you actually remember anything or remember enjoying anything about the gameplay, or do you just like the spectacle?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Because that's something that I'm very curious about.
There's a couple parts in that spot where they're totally option, like totally secondary. Like for instance, you can go to a bank. And then
the bank or the pet store.
The pet store as well is totally optional.
Take on Me by
the Take on Me is completely missable.
The synagogue part was really cool, where just kind of like
learn about Dina.
Dina was like talking about her, her religion and stuff like that. I really like that part, but I also, despite being agnostic, I'm very like into religion. Like I love learning about that type of shit. So but yeah, so I really like that part. But like kind of what Scott is in auto, or I forgot who brought it up, was talking about, and I kind of brushed on this during the Q2, I think it was, discussion. I didn't like how they gave us like this open world, but then like when you were going to the things that you needed that you could do, it was linear. Like you had to get in this specific way, you had to do this, it is kind of like ruin, like why give us this openness if you're not going to let us like execute it the way that we want to, or at least give us options than just like, oh, this is the one way in, this is the one way out, like that type of thing.
If you go to the police station and you get the gas can, you can't get the gas can at the other location, and then if you go in the opposite direction, it's the same thing no matter which way you pick, it's just the same.
And then like I'll just like stop now and go back later and let Scott keep talking, because Scott was still talking.
Also, I don't like the format. I don't like how you play a bunch of Ellie and then you go back to like the very beginning of day 1 and or like day 0 or something with Abby, and then go back up and then it mashes back up. Be like, I touched on this briefly on quarter 2. It's like I wish after the scene with Joel and everything happens, you get to pick whose story you follow first.
Should have been like Resident Evil.
I wish you could do that, and so you could kind of decide, okay, I'm intrigued by this new character. I want to see what's up with her. Or I want to follow Ellie, and then just play through Ellie's side up through the end, see how it ends, and then have the option to go and see it from Abby's perspective and kind of get a whole new perspective on things. I would have preferred that.
Sorry, I think like that option being there, I don't know. I think that would be like totally against what the game is trying to do.
I think it'd be totally detrimental to the actual story that you're telling, especially when it comes to everyone coming from the first game, being in love with Ellie and being in love with Joel. And then when that switch is turned, and then you're seeing the brutality of what she's doing to this person and her life and her friends and Abby, that's where I think like you will lose that if that is true.
I agree with that 1,000%. The first half of the game has to tear down Ellie so that then the second half of the game can build up Abby.
I agree that I think that without the, I know like the story I think does like I think the game is definitely a little too long. Like it definitely drags wheels.
It drags absolutely.
The actual structure of it, of how the way that the story is sort of paced and the specific way where you experience Ellie's story and then you experience Abby's. Like I don't think the story would have had the same impact and effect if there was sort of that choice of like, okay, I want to follow Abby's story, then go to Ellie. Like, I think it needed to be in that specific way to really work.
Yeah, and I do want to say that I agree. Like, I think Abby's section is way too long, and I think a reason because of that is because I really didn't care about any of her side friends. Like, not even because like that they were already dead, but because they just weren't that interesting. Like Abby, I thought was really interesting. But all the other characters, I'm just like, you're just kind of an asshole. Like, you're just kind of here and you're pregnant. Like, I don't know. Like, there was the other woman. Really, and then, and it was just like,
to be fair, you can say that about Dina too in some ways. You're just,
I really like Dina's character.
I agree too. And I think you get a lot more with that relationship. But yeah.
I agree they had to characterize a whole cast on Abby's end, and they did not have ample time to do it. Like the reason we like Dina more is because you kind of sit with her for a good half of the game in some respects.
To be fair, and obviously whenever you play these games and you're playing on one perspective, you don't see what the other people are dealing with, especially in Last of Us 1. As much as we all know that Last of Us 1, they end up being cannibals. What if that group was just totally just random, just normal people that you come across and you steal their deer and shit? But like with this one, it's like, okay, they're people. They're just people. We think of them as this organization or whatever, this thing that comes in that kills Joel. It's like, no, they were just people that were helping out their friend. They're any of us at any moment. And that's what I thought was actually kind of... Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think the way that like with it how they introduce Abby's relationship with Lev and really how they sort of kind of try to mirror Joel and Ellie's relationship in the first game and how that's kind of how that's kind of reflected in Abby and Lev. I think that's really kind of the for me the strongest part of Abby's story, aside from just her characterization and the way that they introduced her.
I also want to say I think that is the aspect of the game you could call bullshit on.
I like Lev and everything. I just think that it was such a quick change from sworn enemies and we're like two groups that have been killing each other for so long to okay, I'm gonna trust you and
I do want
over like these skyscrapers so we can help people.
I do want to preface that. Let me hold on. I do want to preface that because theoretically Abby hasn't been fighting them long. Abby has just joined this group and doesn't honestly see them as an enemy. She's joining because of a family friend. So she doesn't necessarily
join them. She has been with them for a while.
Well, not that
let
long.
Let me jump in.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing. Here's the problem. We're going to argue in circles around this game alone and debate this game's quality for the next 30 minutes if we don't move on to something else. So here's the thing.
No,
we need to start
thank you for letting me air my grievances that I've been bottling up for.
We know. I know Chris has got a rant that I don't think we should dig into just yet about this game. And there are other things unspoken about this game that I think should be unspoken for the moment. We need to start incorporating the other games here because this is why I did not want to get on The Last of Us out of the first of these four, because we argued in circles for 90 minutes to 2 hours about this game 6 months ago. So we cannot do that again because we've already been doing this for for about 3 hours. So we need to start incorporating the other games into and having a larger discussion here rather than doing, and I'm not saying we can't do set amounts of time on certain games, but we do need to start
I think it's time.
Looking at them all is a larger picture here.
Right, yeah.
I think it's time for maybe Final Fantasy.
I've been wanting to talk about Yakuza for a minute.
We can do either one.
All right.
Either one.
All right. Second number. Who wants to talk Yakuza and who wants to talk? All right.
Talk Yakuza because I don't have anything to say about it.
I also don't have anything to say about it.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Well, I'm just okay. Like again, so like obviously, I was looking forward to this game regardless, and then with Judgment, Chris, like Michael, Ricky, like championing this franchise for so long, I was really looking forward to this game, and I want to say straight up, I think this game's great. I think this is a great game. I got to chapter 10 out of 15. I played 2/3 of the game. I haven't finished it. I think the game started off very strongly, like very strongly. I was super into the story from go, and then there's a certain point, which I'm sure that Chris and Ricky will know what I'm talking about, where the game just kind of shifts away from like the stuff that's introduced completely, and that. I didn't want to completely judge from that decision from go, but I immediately was already like, oh no, we're not doing this, are we? Where we're gonna introduce like the main antagonist and everything, and then like that stuff isn't going to be brought up until like the last third of the game. Guess what? That's what it does, and for me that just like. Was really like that's really upsetting because that was the stuff that was really interesting to me. I like the party. I don't like their stories are interesting. I wasn't like blown away by anything. I think that everything in this game is like good, but I don't see. And I'm not saying that it needs to have something new or like revolutionary or innovative to stand out as game of the year. But there's just nothing about it that really screams game of the year for me. I've had technical issues. Where like if you because like there's certain cutscenes where you can like like press A to skip dialogue or something like that, and there are times where it's happened like at least 10 to 15 times where I'll skip the dialogue because I'm just like trying to read and I'm trying to get through the game fast because I wanted to play as much as I can leading up to this point, and then either the subtitles will be gone, so you only hear the audio, or the character will no longer be animating at all, but the audio is still going. Series X.
But you're speeding through it, is what you're saying?
Well, no, you can skip the you can once I read the subtitle, I'm like, oh, I'm not trying to finish the voice the voice line. I'm trying to get through the game a little bit quicker than normal. So like I'll press A to skip, and there'll be more dialogue, and then they'll just be like, but then the audio's still coming out. And then there's like no subtitles. It's really bizarre.
I was gonna say not to get into the weeds, but like if we talked about every issue we had with every little game on this, like I've got really bad texture pop-in issues on Final Fantasy that I've been playing.
I know those big issues. I'm just talking about things that I feel like that I haven't heard about this game.
I've never encountered that at all.
Yeah,
in my
I've never had that.
I don't know what to tell you.
Not to be like you're wrong. I'm just saying like.
Yeah.
3 out of 4 people who have played it have not seen an issue, so I don't see how it's a big issue.
I saw issues, but not that one. I get why that's frustrating to you. I'm not sure what the fix is. I really don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe fiddle with it.
Okay. And then like, just I've had like there's some just design issues I have with the combat, just because like, you can like perfect guard and then. But there'll be times where like, oh, if you're like the person that's going right now is like across the screen, right? And the next person in line is like way back there, and there's someone that's about to attack your party member. The camera doesn't shift in time, so you can try and actually guard it properly. Like I've experienced that a lot of times.
I have had that before.
That can be an issue.
Yeah. Granted, I didn't really mess around with it a whole lot, so take this for what you will. I want to be honest about it, but like I don't like when I got access to the jobs, I was just kind of like looking into the job systems. I'm like, and I was just kind of like comparing like just on paper, just like what them describing the skills and everything. I was like, none of these jobs really feel like better than the jobs that you just start with outside of like the idle job, because it has a lot of healing capabilities. So I was just like, I never like felt like necessary to switch jobs or play around with the job system. I was like, I'm already ranked like level 15 in this job. Why would I take the time to start from scratch on a new job? Like, so those were things I noticed as well. Again, like, I think the characters are the characters are good. Again, nothing really just stands out and screams anything in that sense for me as I've been playing through Yakuza. I think the story for what they're doing is pretty interesting, but like the thing that I'm most interested about still is like is kind of like brought up every like few hours in like one line of dialogue, and I'm like,
can you specify more which that is?
So
like,
well, I mean, just like
aspect you're really looking for,
just like everything with Arakawa, like just like his like Ichiban's relationship with Arakawa, and like, why...
Don't worry, don't you fucking worry. You are right on the cusp. Play a little more. It all comes full circle.
I see the things coming into play, but I just wish that it wasn't something like where it's like kind of non-existent for a long time, and then it comes back.
I'll say that there's a good reason for that, but I can't tell you what it is.
And here's another thing, and like I really don't want to get in the nitty gritty, but just like the way I'm playing through the narrative, I feel like that like the narrative was built as like, we have this idea, but now we got to figure out ways to make that stretch that narrative in the game for the narrative to make sense. Like, it wasn't like, okay, we're going to start from beginning to end. It was like, here's this idea, and then like, let's plant the seeds.
I'm sure you're not describing Final Fantasy VII Remake with stretching narratives.
No, and it feels very obvious at times for me. Again, I think this game is great. I think this game is great.
I mean, we're in the final 5.
Biggest game on this on this list right now.
Yakuza Defense Force.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm so shocked that Cam is the one that started the conversation on this one. Where is the Yakuza Defense Force?
Hey, I knew I was gonna be the one that's gonna have to do it. Okay, so
wait, didn't we call them the Yakuza Coalition? Is what we called them last time?
No, it's the Final Fantasy Coalition.
Final Fantasy Coalition. Okay. What up, Cam?
So yeah, so go ahead and destroy me now.
So I'm just gonna start by saying that I'm very new to this franchise, and I played a little bit of like the previous ones like periodically, but this was the first one that I really just dove into and just like really like fell in love with. I think it was just I just loved the characters to begin with. I kind of fell in love with Ichiban. I love like a lovable idiot.
He nails that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then and this is something that is present in all the Yakuza games. I don't think many series can juggle the tonal changes quite like Yakuza can.
There's nothing that can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you can jump from like this really serious like Yakuza melodrama and like gang related, politics, to just something like a side quest about you trying to find a crayfish named Nancy that you accidentally threw into a dam or something like that, or a reservoir. And I adored it. And I was like, I am here for this. And it just
really like, and that's another thing. Like, I've done at least 15 side quests, and like I don't know, you guys just like hyped this series up for me, so I was just like expecting like some of the wackiest, like amazing side quests. And like they're like,
that's not even the wackiest thing. They just keep going.
You're telling me when you saw a man baby and you were.
I haven't like played a side quest. I'm like, so this is what they're talking about. Like when you guys tell me like,
isn't the diaper baby man thing like a mainline thing?
Really?
Yeah, no, I did do that one, and that was funny. But I also saw that via like a gameplay trailer or something like that. I remember seeing it before I played the game, so I guess it.
No, I took footage of it, so maybe it was me.
I mean, just the idea that like your summons are called pound mates just like had me going for a while. So I was like, I'm here for this. And then I guess I disagree with you like as far as the combat. Like, I personally really enjoyed it, and it felt I actually enjoyed it more than some of the. I'm sorry.
I like the combat. I like.
Oh, did you?
I just think that there's some issue. I just thought there was like some issues with the camera.
Oh yeah.
They're mostly holdovers of a genre shift in the middle of development. So
yeah. And then
still quite good regardless.
Yeah, and then I actually enjoyed the combat. I think I enjoyed it more than some of the previous Yakuza games, just because it felt a little more focused. It felt like there were more options.
It also gets you all the cool stuff really quick, which is a big deal.
Yeah. And something else that I guess comparatively to other games in the series, it definitely feels like it ramps up much quicker. And I think that was something that was part of why I got dragged into it so easily.
Yes.
But it's easily one of the most fun experiences that I've had, one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had this year. Just from the story, from the characters, from the gameplay, from all of the side quests. I mean, there's a whole a whole quest line revolving around stray cats, and I like cats, so I was like, I want to find all these cats, and that just and that was something I was like, oh, I want to go spend the time and find all of these collectibles and stuff like that, and not to mention that it's a great looking game. They've really fully realized this small portion of this Japanese city in the modern day, and as opposed to some of the other ones that were sort of jumping around in time. But it's easily one of my favorite games of this year, if not my number one. And
I don't what are you gonna say, Logan?
But go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I was gonna say let's move on. We've heard a positive and a negative, and I feel like this is. I really do feel like we need to start talking about all the games and start comparing them. And so, because I know there's very positive things left to be said on the table about Last of Us. There's very positive things left to be said on the table about Yakuza, and also very negative things about both games that I don't want to. I'm just trying to prevent us from diving too deep into single games, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense.
So, do you want to move on either to Final Fantasy?
Let's do Final Fantasy. Yeah, okay. Since we'll leave the indie boy for last. I can start this, I guess. I don't know.
I have a lot to say about this one too.
I have a lot to say, but I'll condense it like this. And I know Cam thinks I'm coming from this I'm here to murder Final Fantasy. I want to like this game a lot.
Same.
And I wanted to go into this for my entire life. I've heard people rave about Final Fantasy VII. So for me, it was finally I can play this stinking game, and I hope it clicks with me. And it just has not on the levels that I think a lot of other people have. And a lot of that is because of nostalgia, obviously, and that's totally fine. But even story and character stuff aside, and I think some of that stuff is pretty good in the game. Just gameplay wise, I just don't I am halfway into this game now, and it is not changed from the moment I set foot off the train to start attacking the first Mako reactor. They have introduced new spells and stuff like that, but it is nothing that is out of left field that is not from a Final Fantasy game. There are other materials that they have incorporated and new characters, fighting styles, but once you get the four main people and you're okay, these are how they operate, then it is that's what there is, I guess. And since I primarily play as Cloud a lot of times, his moveset has just not changed at all throughout this game, and I just don't understand what about the combat.
Wait. Did you upgrade? Okay. Did you upgrade your weapons at all?
Yeah.
And to get new skills?
Yeah.
You're wrong. I don't.
So you press X and you do the same animation you always do,
No.
Okay.
But
he's
right. Any other action JRPG,
what is different about it?
You can look at literally any other action RPG and say the same thing. Then that's.
Then I guess I'm being reductive about the whole genre. I would say then I don't think that if that's all action JRPGs, then I don't think action JRPGs are very enticing from a mechanical standpoint.
Agreed.
It's including that.
As someone that really doesn't like JRPGs flat out, I really like Final Fantasy VII Remastered. Combat wise, I actually remake and whatever, man.
Totally different thing.
But From a combat standpoint, I actually think it's pretty solid and actually varied. You know, when you get into the different enemy types, and I mean, albeit one of the things that I've kept on cloud literally the entire game has been assess, so that I can figure out exactly how to approach different enemies. That has resulted in me approaching every enemy in a different way, switching out characters a lot. I've actually now at the end of the game, I have built each character into essentially a specific role, and that's gone double when, you know, I haven't had access to some characters. When Aerith wasn't available, I turned Tifa into a brawling magician.
Yes,
shit's cool, man.
Yes,
I actually really like the way that, especially with the variance of weapons and weapon skills, what you can do to build out different, you know, not rigid classes, but classes all the same. That being said, Logan, you mentioned something about Final Fantasy VII stretching out its narrative, and boy, oh boy, it's in its nature to do that. It is the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, but it's 40-something hours, and albeit it's a different story. It's not a better story.
You said you didn't play the first one, right?
I disagree.
I watched a lot of
I know
the first one. I
know what happens.
I didn't exactly. Yeah, I didn't play Final Fantasy VII. I watched a lot of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I've tried to play it a bunch of times, and I've got like 2 hours into it, and then I'm like, oh wait, I hate JRPGs.
Mario wants to interject.
Yeah, I just want to quickly interject, because this is also the first Final Fantasy VII I've played. I have not played the original. I've played Final Fantasy games over the years in terms of like slightly like Final Fantasy Tactics is still the one thing that's like majorly in my brain. And it wasn't until Final Fantasy 15 is when I fully committed and I beat the whole game. So, and I played Kingdom Hearts games, but I don't count those.
You and me are coming from a very similar background then.
Yes, exactly. So coming to this one and being my first experience with this game, I treated it as it was going along, especially with the story. I treated it very much in the same way that I would watch, say, like a Spielberg film or even a J.J. Abrams. Specifically, obviously, when we talk about the ending. Is this another game that we could spoil, by the way?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I don't.
Yeah. I know what.
I feel like you have to really
kind of like to get in the minutia.
Like I know it gets all Nomura the fuck up at the end.
So it's a sequel.
Yeah. So basically, when it comes to sort of these talks about stretching the narrative, I think that the narrative that they tell is actually good for what this game is. A lot of people obviously want it to be a full remake of the entirety of that game, and they seemingly stretch 5 hours of story?
3 hours. Because I recorded the entire original game version of Final Fantasy VII
to this point, right?
Up through the entire Midgar section, and did a video comparing the two, and it took me about 3 hours or so to play through the Midgar section in the original version.
And I'll say
you played JRPGs
more than 8 hours.
He plays 1,000 JRPGs, which is I understand. I get this.
He has a podcast about it.
Exactly, 1,000%. Look at his wall. But my thing here is that with this game specifically is that I felt like they were able to flesh out those characters, specifically Wedge, and of course, the other
and
Jesse, and then of course
Bears. I fucking hate Wedge. Fuck Wedge.
The whole detour with Jesse and them, and then like the speed demon shows up, and it's just like all that. He's like,
that part was great.
I actually had a great time.
Speed Demon's rad.
Speed Demon. He comes straight out of a Yakuza game.
Not even that.
Speed Demon good. All the like other stuff around it where they're like,
no.
They try to flesh it out a bit. I just whatever.
What made that part so great was what a lot of people like of the original Final Fantasy VII fans wanted, which was seeing more than just like the bums of Midgar. Like they saw you get to see the upper plate. You got to see like more of that actual world and like.
That's what I wanted to say.
Also,
that's what I wanted to say. Hold on, let me continue here, and then I'll move off of this. What I want to say is that it built out the world and gave me a reason why I should care about this story and why I should care underneath the pizza. You know, why I should care about these individual people. And so when big moments happen later in the story, when something falls down, I cared, and I cared about the well-being of people, and the fact that this becoming obviously this being like a linear story of like how everyone wants to believe this game's going to go. Some of those things I did not know about, so to see them happen and see them be different for some people. I found that refreshing and great, and that's why I enjoy this overall. And when we get to the ending, I thought the ending was kind of rad. I know that we're gonna talk about that. That's all I'm going to say. I just think the ending, the idea of the ending is phenomenal, and I'm excited as someone who's starting new. And maybe I didn't need to know 15, 20 years of backstory of that old game. I didn't need that.
Well, shit, you did.
No, you
There's
don't.
so many moments in this game that like come way out of left field where it's like, oh, hey, here's a Zach dude.
I think Zach is the
but
only
here's the thing, though. You don't need to know that. You will find that out in the next game.
You don't need to know who Zach is.
In the story that they tell, you don't need that now.
It's a cool nod for fans of the series, but you don't need to know.
Let me explain this to you.
You don't need to explain it.
Because you're saying something that
and
is
you didn't even get that far.
wrong.
So no, you don't know how it's laid out in the game.
I know. Yeah, I do.
No,
because
Zach isn't even introduced in the original Final Fantasy VII until like the last third of the game. So this is not. It's not your. You don't need to know who Zach is. You do not need to know who Zach is. I promise you.
Yeah, I didn't, and I did not know.
It is set up for the next game where you will learn who Zach is.
My point is with the storytelling, though, is the thing that I see the longtime Final Fantasy folks like. I've tried to do my due diligence to find out the things about this game that click with the fans, and there's like all these reaction compilations online of like this and this and this, and it's like there are things I'm watching that like. A person who's coming to this for the first time would have no earthly idea why any of this makes any sense or why any of this matters.
But I think
does it? Because now it's
still just part one.
They introduce the concept of destiny and then we kill it. Like it doesn't matter.
We don't know if it's okay though. Like that would be my argument. Is like now you've got people finishing this game saying, "Oh, I guess I got to replay Crisis Core now to know what might happen moving forward."
No,
because they're clearly trying to
go online and watch a video if you really want that.
If they're trying to. Because the whole ending of the game shows that they're trying to shake loose the shackles of the first game,
and that's not the only thing that they do to do that.
It's
So here's the thing about like, and you know, like I know that Chris, like me and him fundamentally disagree on the ending of the game, but I think that me and Chris can agree
so many filibusters.
that the narrative of the game has things that are great for that's rewarding for those who haven't played Final Fantasy VII before and those who have played the original Final Fantasy VII in a way where for me, part of me wishes I didn't know what was going on in Final Fantasy VII, so that like when it comes to this remake, all these things that you may not know, Logan, I wish I was in your shoes so that when I get that revelation this time around, it'll be like I wish I could get that experience.
But this is my argument: is we don't know if it's going to be this same revelation in the same way. Is because they're twisting it and subverting it, and we don't know.
That's kind of exciting.
So you're under the assumption they're going to remake the next. What I'm assuming there's going to be 3 parts of this. Personally,
sure.
We're imagining they're going to make 3 parts of this that are going to follow the exact same template as the other games. When the game's ending,
that's not what the game. That's not what the end of the game is at all.
That's the point of that.
That is my point. That is my point, though, is that Cam is saying you don't know why this is special because it's going to be special down the road because I know what's special about it.
But the way that they're going to present it in the future might be interesting. That's what I'm saying.
I have a basis idea of what like I have a basis idea of who Zach is, sure. But I don't know like what's going to happen story related regarding Zach or anything else moving forward, just like everyone else.
Yeah, the entire point
of Sephiroth's probably still going to summon Meteor. We know that like people probably will still die. Like we have like the big moments that
still go
probably
to the
still happen.
Yeah.
Like Gold Saucer will probably still be there and be crazy. Like we know like the big story beats and they've
we don't
pretty much already said
the opposite effect. We don't. The new unknown players are going in not knowing the future. That is the thing. That is the big takeaway from it.
Yeah, that's what I think.
That's literally
we are all on the same page going, all right, let's see what you got. That's where it's at.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying
it's the Star Trek reboot going for it.
I would like to clarify that I am fine with that. I am fine with all of us being blind moving forward because the things that I did not like about this one was that I felt like I was going to get the story that I was expecting, and then it's not that. So for all as a group now going forward blind, that's fine. But to somebody like Cam, him coming into this, he expected to see the story play out in the way that he's known it to play out, and I was expecting the story to play out in a way that like it would be new to me for the first time, but I would be experiencing that story. And I get it is still doing that to a degree, obviously, but it is changing it all.
I think the fact that it markets itself as a remake.
It does. Like the remake is on the title.
We thought we were gonna get a straight up remake, and then you don't, right? Like
it's not a remaster, it's a remake.
It's not going to be called a
remade. Yeah.
Like the whole point is that this is a ballsy as fuck move by them. If half of what they're setting up goes forward, right, the next parts aren't going to be called remake. That there will certainly be a lot of parallels, but that's kind of, I think, why it's not remake part 1 or anything like that. Because it was kind of like until the 11th hour, everyone's like, "Oh, okay, this is a remake with a future." No, it's not.
I personally wish this game was called
remaking the timeline.
I personally wish this game was called Final Fantasy VII Midgar. I just wish that was it.
That would be cool.
All right.
I just want to say one last thing.
Go for it, and then I want to.
So here's the thing. I want to just use an example of why I think that there's things that's why for me, I think this is the best narrative this year, and I think it's because you get things if you're new, and you get things if you're a veteran of this series, right? And here's a good example. For you guys get to experience the bombing run for the first time, which is one of the best intros to any video game ever. And I wish I could have experienced that. That was my first time with this new one, right?
Yeah.
But then there are more little things with the narrative that with the Whisperers specifically. I don't know how far you are. I'm sorry if I spoiled that.
We already spoiled the majority of the game, so it's fine.
But there's an aspect where when Cloud, in the original, Cloud was supposed to just verbatim do the second bombing run in Sector 5, right? In this one, Barrett's we're done working with you. Go on your way. And then the Whisperers attack and injure Jesse, who was going to go in his place. And now he has to go because they're forcing, fate is forcing him.
The fandom in Destiny is forcing this game into being in existence, and we're fighting against it the entire way through.
And you wouldn't know that if you haven't played the original.
It's fucking Nier Automata.
So that's a really nice, awesome attention to detail that those who those who did play the original get rewarded for, which is really cool. So there's again similar.
But my point is as a new player, that story moment does nothing for me, is what I'm saying. Just being
but
it's not supposed to.
But that's my point.
But I think with that specific moment, they don't make it into.
That's fine. We don't need to get into specific.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, as a blanket statement, there are things that returning players get that new players don't, and vice versa.
My major.
Go ahead.
No, because you're going to undermine what I'll say.
No, my same argument with that is and I'm going to keep going back to Star Trek Reboot, because the beginning of that movie, fucking James C. Kirk's father gets murked, and he doesn't in the normal trilogy. But I didn't know that. But I'm just saying, I still enjoy the movie regardless of that.
I want to stress I really don't dislike this game at all. I think it's I think it's totally solid. I just compared to other things on the list,
that's why it's top 5, baby.
I think this game has really bad side quests.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's the only bad part of the game.
Poor side
quest. That's another conversation.
In comparison to what I played this year, yes, I agree.
All right, let's talk about Hades, because it is probably my.
Before you do that, please.
No.
No.
Oh no.
I just want to.
Go for it.
Okay, fine, whatever.
Go for it.
No, what is it? I want to know now.
So think about Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? It hinges way too much on what comes next, right? It hinges way too much on the quality of the next game, and that may undermine this one, or it may elevate it even further. But we don't know. And much in the same way that I can't really call, because I can't back Trails of Cold Steel for that exact thing. It relies too much on what has been there. It's hard to rely on something that relies on what is to come, And that could go very badly, because the ending was divisive. I hated the tone. I thought it was poorly executed. That was the big takeaway from my review of it. And I don't like when Nomura goes unchained. I think he's a hack. I know Cam thinks he's a genius, but I think he's a hack, and I'll stand by that. But some will like it, some may not. We don't know. We just don't know. It's unfinished almost. And the next game will really elevate or elevated, you know, and that's where I'm at. Like, that's the hard thing. It's like I want to like this game a lot. And
the thing you said,
the
thing you said when you said unfinished, I fundamentally disagree. I think that they told the story they need to tell for this game. The future games can tell whatever story that they want to tell, and whatever that
he's saying. He's just talking about the context of the narrative. Like, it's hard to know if this narrative is great or not, because here's the thing: no matter I think we can all generally agree, like, if the next couple games are stinkers, nobody's going to come back to part one and be like, wow, this is great, because you'll not be able to shake loose the context of what comes later.
But everyone remembers Bioshock 1 being fantastic, and then, I mean, people hate the other ones, but they still know that this was fine. I think this one's just
Bioshock 1 is
fine.
terrible and Infinite's great. So,
all right, time to dig up the 2007 game of the year.
I'm using that as a comparison. I was like, sure, I think this game as a whole is fantastic. The later games could be shit, and that's totally fine. And I don't think that should be taken accounted for this game specifically.
I want to bring the argument that, like, looking at it from a narrative standpoint, at the very least, you look at I'm going to pull in something that's very controversial from another sci-fi franchise. You look at The Last Jedi. A lot of the debate around that movie was rooted in the fact that you did not know what the hell was going to happen in Episode 9, right? And a lot of people said, I will like Last Jedi if Episode 9 goes off of it well. And I think Last Jedi, looking back, personally, I like that movie. I'm not going to start a discussion about that, because that's a bag of cats that we do not have time for. But the fact of the matter is, it stands on its own in the same way that Final Fantasy VII Remake stands on its own, where you see it as, firstly, it's telling the story of the first few hours of Final Fantasy VII. On top of that, there is the meta narrative. On top of that, there is the struggle against fate, which is those three things as a narrative work, but then on top of that, they are able to fold into a greater narrative. And I think that's what's really important about it, is that it's able to accomplish so much. And up until the last 5 to 10, maybe 15 minutes, it does it very well. And in those last minutes, it's divisive, not necessarily bad.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that's 100. Charlie, you said that so well. I'm like, great.
I'm gonna give you a big smooch.
Let's do Hades.
I just want to say that. Like, I think it's a great complete game. I think it's a great complete game, and I think that Okay.
Let's talk about the real game of the year. It's Hades, right?
I'm fine with saying that. I'm super. That's like the most kosher thing I've heard all fucking night.
I just want to. I just want to start from this point. We have done 4 previous discussions prior to this, and this is the one that the whole staff united around and put their swords together and was like, yes, this game is unequivocally awesome.
This is the thing I think we need to go
from that point. Like, this is the one I feel like we have been, if I'm being honest, this is the one I feel like is gonna win. So
same.
There's that.
I thought that since the very beginning of this, because we all, like, people are choosing sides, people have, put their banners behind things. We've all had complaints, issues or whatever with like fundamental ones with all the other games listed in some way, shape or form. Hades is probably the only one where just about everybody, like, there's certainly something people think, aspects of it are better or worse. Absolutely. It's not perfect, but this is the one where everyone's like, damn, this is a good ass video game.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the great unifier. There's from the Final Fantasy fans to the Last of Us fans to the Yakuza fans, it doesn't matter. All corners of the gamer world.
An insurmountable task. Someone had to do it.
We're all thirsty for Hades.
As
All right,
someone,
so I'm gonna Go ahead.
As someone I've played a little bit of it, I suck. But I watched Logan play for 4 days straight or 3 days straight.
We thought he threw his Switch on the ground.
No, that was never even close to happening. They just thought I did it.
Legit, I was like, this game's really great.
He punched his couch because he was so upset he didn't.
Yeah.
Hey man, Hades beat me. I had so little health left on it. I mean, he beat me.
I have clips on my Twitch channel of me dying to Hades when I was this fucking close and slamming my desk, like slamming my fist on my desk so.
Oh no, what happened? Everyone's dying. Oh, the internet went out. Well, you just got me, ladies.
No, let's just talk about Hades.
No,
let's just talk about Hades and cross everything else off.
I do think that, yeah, I don't know. This is like, by roguelike standards, I do think this is one of the best I've ever played, if not the best roguelike I've ever played. The one thing I want to hone in on why this game is so good, outside of just the gameplay and mechanics being so highly polished and all of the weapons feeling awesome in their own right, is that every single time you feel like you're about to get stuck in this game, it introduces something new, to another carrot on the stick for you to continue pushing forward, to continue finding something else. Like, and it does that up through the point where you roll credits on the game. Like,
it has a Nier Automata vibe to it that I was not expecting, and I was like, I really want to keep watching you play.
I rolled credits on this game, and it was still introducing new systems and mechanics. Like, hey man, now you can go do this if you want, and like the game never stops. Like, and this is my problem. It's kind of the it's the antithesis of Final Fantasy to me, where I felt like Final Fantasy introduced all these things up front, and I was like, cool, I will familiarize myself with these mechanics and go from there. And it never really expanded on them in any interesting ways. Hades, conversely, I feel like does that to a masterful degree, where you are constantly getting something new in this game that you feel like is like making you want to go on another run, like right away. Like, you get back to the House of Hades. You get back to the House of Hades and you talk to some people or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, there's a whole new system unlocked. It's like, wow, okay, now I really want to go do another run right this second, because I want to see how this plays out once I get a few runs in and start expanding on this side that just showed off. And they do that nonstop.
I would willingly say the same exact thing about The Last of Us 2. The Last of Us 2. When you play The Last of Us 2 for about 2 hours, you have a good grip on most of the game, although, you know, sure, it introduces new craftables, new weapons here and there. It slightly builds, it slightly expands on its already established systems, and if you're a player of The Last of Us 1, it's nothing that's really much of a surprise. And even if you're coming into The Last of Us 2 fresh, which, why are you doing that? It's still kind of obvious. You know, you should be able to have the foresight to see that coming, but everything that Hades stacks upon itself is fresh, new, and you're just like, I cannot believe this is a new thing that I can do now. I can't believe that this new avenue has opened up to me, because it's not something that you expect, and every single time it is good.
Yeah,
that is what flat out astounds me, is that every single time Hades adds something to itself, it is not a detraction. It does not, you know, kind of lose itself under that sheer mass. It just grows firmer.
And
I want
everything. Go ahead, Joe.
I wanted to kind of flip this discussion, like this kind of thread that on its head for a second, because while I do agree, and I honestly, full transparency, I went into this discussion kind of pretty much with Last of Us, Final Fantasy, and Hades tied, almost indiscernibly close for me. And I love all three games, but I think with Hades, turning this thread on its head, like I said, I think Hades has a way of introducing things. Well, again, to me, I think because it's a roguelike, it does this really well, and it should be doing this because that's how roguelikes work, where it introduces a lot of things, but compared to Final Fantasy VII Remake and Last of Us Part 2, it doesn't necessarily, and again, I'm not mentioning Ori and Yakuza because I haven't had a chance to play them yet, but it doesn't necessarily have the same consistent level of depth that the other two do on a consistent basis, where, again, Hades has a lot of really cool stuff and a lot of systems at play, but I think once you boil it down to like a run-by-run basis, there isn't necessarily the amount of depth there that I'm always looking for in a roguelike. And again, I understand why that is, and it's because they want to keep stacking on those things run by run. And I appreciate that, because I think, again, so I forget who said it, but it's a good carrot and a stick moment. But I don't necessarily know if it's something that I appreciate as much.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that there's it gives you a lot of options, which is great, but there's still only a number of options that you can choose per run. And then when you do those, when each run feels, honestly, just kind of feels the same for me. And to the point where I think the world that they built, Supergiant built, is really cool and detailed. And I think that, it's well written, but I don't know when it was. It was probably a few months ago. And a few months ago, I think when I got to my third clear, I legitimately just felt like I didn't need to continue playing. because the story wasn't really grabbing me. I didn't want to have to go through the same like structure of enemies and things like that. Like I know that they vary here and there, but like there just wasn't enough variety to make it not feel like I was just kind of playing on autopilot when I got to the point of like powerfulness where I wasn't really worried about dying. It was just getting to Hades and and beating him, that I was just like, this isn't like playing through this run 7 more times, which is like like 5 or 6 hours, just didn't feel like a good investment of my time with the other games that were out. Again, like I think the game is great. I think that there's, again, the options are there, and I know that like there's like the heat thing where you can make the game harder and things like that, but like
heaps of modifiers.
I just don't like when I have to modify the game myself to try and find a challenge. Like I want it to be like, this is what you got and this is what you're rolling with. Like, and that's kind of why I do prefer like roguelikes like Dead Cells, because like even though I get I get more souls, I get more unlocks and stuff like that every time, I've never felt more confident that I was going to pass a run. Like and I feel like in Hades it does get to that point where it's in a way it's a positive, because it's accessible. It's probably the most accessible roguelike there ever's been, because they make it so that like it gets easier, and for those that want to make like use the heat to make it harder for themselves, they can. But like for me, like
that's a big thing.
Yeah, for me it's just like, okay, but I kind of just wish it was just like that verbatim, if that makes sense. So like again, it's just one of those things, like the story didn't really grab me, and I definitely think that there was definitely like a ranking of like what weapons were best and which ones weren't as good and things like that. And I don't know, like I think the game's great. It's gonna be on my top 10 this year, but like out of the games left on the list outside of Yakuza, it'd probably be on like the lower end of my list.
So okay, we are in the nitty gritty. So hear me out. Let's formally kill Ori, because I know that I have
throw one out.
Yep.
I let's officially throw one out. I think Ori is the one that should be thrown out, personally, and I feel way more strongly about that than 2 of the other games on this list. But I think Ori should go at this point.
Ori can go.
I mean, I'll say this, just judging the passion from the discussions that we have had over these 5 games, Ori is the one where it is like the most dialed back, where we're just like, yeah, the game's fantastic and it's great. We are, as a group, 10 times more passionate about the other 4. And so for that reason, I think it should go.
Sure.
As much as I love it, yeah.
It made the top 5. Congratulations, Ori.
Yeah.
Even though Mike tried to kill it like 4th.
Hey man, I wanted it to win, really, but like that's not going to happen. And I just realized that.
Things you love, man.
And I just realized.
Gotta be rough on the things you love.
Yeah.
Push it out of the best.
I don't know what we want to do from here.
I think it's
start making your final cases.
I think A's or Nays would be a fucking appropriate.
I want to hear. Here's the thing. I want to hear cases on Yakuza, like positive cases on Yakuza.
Yeah,
because I feel like
I will say out of the 4 we have, Yakuza's the lowest. I feel like
what I've heard, like I haven't heard anything that like makes me feel like, oh, this should be in the conversation right now. So I just want to, Chris.
We kind of did move on to the next game without, we wanted to hear the grievances.
Yeah, go for.
Ricky, you want to take this one?
You can go
Business Sim is great. Business Sim is great in that game.
I'll take it as like I haven't finished it yet, so I'm gonna have the least amount to say about it. So I'll start first. I think having played, I played 0, 1, and 2 earlier this year for the first time, and again, I think Kiwami 2 is like one of my favorite video games of all time now. This game, how it translates like that kind of gameplay, or that world and that kind of that kind of gameplay, and translate it into like a more traditional JRPG, I think is one of the most expertly done things I have ever seen in a video game. Like there's like the fact that you can like that they were able to take like action, like I mean it's really good action gameplay or whatever, and make it into a like a turn-based RPG, I think is actually incredible, and especially for like their first run at it, I think, and it's as good as it is, I think is a testament to how good that studio is, because it could have been not great, honestly. And going like into it, I didn't know if I would like it because I don't really like turn-based RPGs all that much. I play a few here and there, but I'm not really into them. So going into it and me actually enjoying it, like that already has it for me. Like this game is something special. And also just like what Cam, the younger, was saying, I think like playing as like the like kind of like blissfully like kind of dumb idiot Ichiban, like it's something that like I don't know, like the voice actor who's doing it, I think the voice acting is really great too, and the one for Ichiban specifically I think is like incredible in like playing that role. I think that's kind of the same for some of the rest of them too. The story too, as I'm 20 hours in, so I'm on chapter 7. I got to chapter 7 right now. So I met the Liamang boss and gone through all of that. So like I feel like there's always been a moment, and I think you've even said this, Cam, like there like up to this point, like I don't see this story like slowing down at all. Like to me, like I have been kept interested every single moment from like the stuff with like your father figure, I can't remember his name, Arakawa, to like going to, should I spoil stuff or no?
Spoil it.
I would ask that you please don't for my sake, but I also won't know.
This is like kind of just beginning, like going to jail and then coming back and all the stuff that happens when you come back and then making your way into Yokohama, like all that stuff. And that's like first 5 hours of that game is honestly incredible. Like I didn't think, and it's one of the better beginnings of any of the other Yakuza games that I've ever played. Like it tells like, and like I think Cam also said the other game, Cam the Younger. There's two Cams. I hate this. What was I even saying? Like it like builds it up like the pacing of the like 0, 1, and 2 is a lot slower, and this one keeps you interested like right at the get-go because of what's happening. And yeah, like I think also like the open world stuff, like giving you like the change of scenery, because a lot of the games before was Kamurocho, and you kind of get familiarized with that world, especially even if you play like 0, 1, and 2. All the locations for the most part are the same. There's some changes here and there, but they're all the same. So going into Yokohama and kind of having that like new scenery is really refreshing in some ways, especially since I just played like 60 to 100 hours of that game in one city. So like going into Yokohama and seeing like it fleshed out just as much as Kamurocho was is really cool. And also kind of seeing like that beginning part where you're in Kamurocho is really cool too. And seeing that all those locations are still there, and like I knew where to go again because I was able to just like navigate those streets like as if it never changed. So that those parts are really great too. It still keeps, like you said, like keeping like changing the tone of each thing, right? Like it tells us, the story itself is like such a serious, in some ways melodramatic, like gang drama, and then it could switch randomly but also expertly into like trying to I don't even know, dude. Like there's a public urinator and you have to try finding a public urinator or something like that. Like it's just like, it's so goofy, and like I think it's something it's like hard to find in video games where you could just like sit down and like laugh about a video game. And I don't think I get a lot of that from really many other video games other than the Yakuza series. And that's the same for Yakuza Like a Dragon. I think the one thing I could say like negatively about this is that I feel like I'm not playing the game as much as just watching cinematics throughout the entire experience. I wish I could be playing more. I felt like a lot of the times I was just watching the story unfold, and while the story is great and I really love it, I felt like there were extended periods where I was just sitting there and watching, and I wish I could just play and go into those combat systems and stuff like that because I thoroughly enjoyed that stuff. And I'm sure there will be moments where I'll get to do that. But for like the first 20 hours that I've played, that's how I felt about that. And that's like one of my negative takeaways from that.
It has a lot to say.
Yeah, it has a lot to say right in the beginning, and it's a lot.
Let me jump in real quick. Okay, so and this is nothing against you at all, Mike. We can't do 5-minute soliloquies about games anymore.
That's fine.
I'm gonna start putting times. We've got 60 to 90 seconds tops for anything. If you step to the plate and you want to say anything about any of the games left, I'm going to cut you off after a certain point because folks, we're on hour 4, which we expected this to be. We expected this to be long. I get it, but also it's 11 p.m. Eastern, so
sure is. Plenty of time. We have plenty of time.
Oh yeah, Cam, you do.
Time traveler. 8 p.m.
Hey! I go to 7 a.m. every fucking meeting. You guys can stay late this time.
And that's nothing against you, but like we got to get to the purest core of the argument rather than just being like, yeah, I like this aspect and this happened and I had this bug and this happened to me too. Like, get to the point. What did you like or dislike, or why do you think all of these games should be game of the year? Okay. Period. Chris, talk about Yakuza finally, please.
Right. So everything it does pretty well. It's able to jump tones, as people say, really quickly. It does serious stuff, goofy stuff, anything in between, but always it's consistent. It's got a lot of heart. The characters are what they are. They're explored, and especially in this game, the characters are really well fleshed out, get a lot to say. The battle system is pretty good. It's not the best JRPG system, not even this year, but it's aping Dragon Quest, which itself is pretty basic. So I think it does a good job of doing that, but the way it recontextualizes modern Yakuza stuff into a JRPG is fucking hilarious and on point. And that's furthered by, all sorts of ridiculous enemies, enemy names, so many puns.
Hungry Homeless is my favorite.
That's one, yeah. Pornographero, I think, is my favorite. Yeah, and a ton of mini games all get their own, kind of fleshed out side quests and aspects to it. It all ties back together into this one thing. And then as the story goes, it does continue. It does get better. It does tie in all those things that Cam thought had, kind of taken a seat. I promise you, it all comes back together.
Sure it does.
I just off so well. Just be on. I know you. Yeah. I'm doing it quickly. After the point you're at, it will start to come back to that, and it all just comes together into this bombastic, fantastic conclusion that is heart-wrenching and warm and beautiful and fucking amazing. So the ending is seriously one of the best I've had in pretty much the entire year, but also just the series in general. Like, it's up there with Zero, tied for best Yakuza game.
Time. Thank you. I also should throw this out there. If anybody else wants to step to the plate, you don't have to say anything about the game we're talking about. We're doing Yakuza now. Let's talk about all 4 of them. I keep saying this. Let's talk about all of them.
Better. I just want to.
Charlie raised his hand.
Okay. So this is specifically about kind of everyone having like specific complaints about different things, but I think the only I know we're shifting gears a little bit, but the biggest complaint that I've heard about. The one that I'm gunning for, Final Fantasy VII Remake, look behind me, is the section with the big-ass hands that you're moving around, and it's kind of slow. But if that is the worst part of the game, part that not only serves...
It's not
the worst. It's the ghost.
Okay. Train Yard's the worst part. Ghost. It's so bad.
Train Yard's awesome. Okay. What are you talking about?
I always heard... Okay, anyways...
It's not great, but
that is a moment and a part of the game that serves exclusively to build the character of Cloud that doesn't really happen in the original, and that is only able to happen because of the things that are happening in the game. And I think that even that speaks to the fact that the weaker parts of it are necessary and are justified in a way that some of the weaker parts and other things aren't. Last of Us 2,
I'm fine with cutting The Last of Us 2, by the way, and
no, I'm not. No,
I would cut Yakuza before Last of Us.
Hold on, do you guys hear that?
Here it is. My time.
Oh no.
My time is now.
Mail ballots. They just arrived in droves. Oh my god.
Yes, they did.
There's a whole bunch dumped in my lap. Wow.
Let's hit them all. Go.
Nick Blaine writes in and says,
Patrick Swayze?
The real Patrick Swayze, yeah. He says, over the past couple of weeks, we've seen countless, over the past couple of years, we've seen countless remakes, many of which have redefined what it is to be a remake. None of them blur lines more than Final Fantasy VII Remake. Not only did it provide an awesome retelling of part of this classic game, but it gave new understanding to the world and characters that was not seen within the original. Without spoilers, the ending could be vastly different could be hinting at a vastly different Final Fantasy VII than the one we remember. That's not even to mention the vastly different gameplay that melds real-time combat and classic Final Fantasy mechanics so seamlessly. Nomura may be a crazy man, but damn if he doesn't do the best job of getting me hyped up for what's to come. That's one in the Final Fantasy bucket.
Nick, if you're watching, you're fired.
And I know we've kind of been tossing out the mail-ins at this point, but I think we should definitely take these largely more into account now, this final group, than we have in the past. I just want to throw that out.
Put like a tick mark next to like whichever, so we know.
I'll put the final. I know what the final tallies are. I'll jot them down next to them each in a second.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Alyssa. It literally has it all. Excellent voice acting and sound direction, lush, gorgeous graphics enhanced by a beautifully vibrant color palette, challenging and polished action gameplay, and a great original soundtrack. Cam, you probably should not get hyped up. This is an indie studio that is far surpassing industry standard and treated as they weave together these wonderfully creative worlds. Alyssa is vouching for Hades.
Yes. I figured that would happen.
Oh, shit.
Oh, Lord.
What I did.
I cannot believe I have just seen the definition of debated play out in front of my eyes.
Yeah, it was like the SpongeBob movie over here.
Next up, we have Grant Huff, who says, Naughty Dog is once again showed why they're the best storytellers in the video game industry. It might not have been exactly what I wanted or what plenty of other people wanted, but the experience left me floored when I finally finished it. Naughty Dog knew exactly what the reaction would be from plenty of gamers out there, and they still went for it. Next up, we have Peter Spitek, who says, my game of the year for 2020 is The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah!
It's a game that subverted my expectations in the most satisfying ways while also making me challenge my own personal biases against characters who have, quote, done me wrong. The entire game feels like an exercise in empathy that resonated with me in a very personal way. So when the final fight was gearing up, all I wanted was Ellie and Abby to both walk away. I've picked apart each detail in the story again and again in my head, and I think it serves as an example of how powerful the medium of video games can be. Next up,
Here's my issue with that. Hold on. Here's my issue with that.
Hold on. We're reading the mail-ins. Hold on. We've got two left. Two more left. And then you can step to the plate and you can deliver an anti-argument.
Sure.
Next up, we've got a new face. Justin Kacharski, who says, The Last of Us Part 2 is my pick for the game of the year. Although the game has been divisive, the story and characters struck a chord with me. Driven by strong performances by Ashley Johnson and Laura Bailey, I felt as though I was sharing the characters' struggles throughout a story that made a lot of bold choices. Even if something didn't sit well with me early on, I was amazed to see how the game was able to do so while I was amazed to see how the game was able to do the talking and made me change my mind by the time the credits rolled. Along with this, the game features excellent stealth action gameplay that made every encounter feel more tense than the last. In conclusion, The Last of Us Part 2 made me feel unlike any other game that came out this year. It was genuinely hard to play at times, but those moments are the ones that stuck with me the most and why it is my game of the year for 2020. Last but not least, Rachel Fittis writes in and says, I love this game, not only because it made me feel every emotion possible, which I think not many games have been able to achieve, but the depth of the storytelling was second to none. The Last of Us 2 also created one of the most formidable, compelling, and complex characters I've ever played in Abby. Incorporating her redemption arc not only made The Last of Us 2 what it is, but it also changed how I play games by not initially viewing certain aspects in black and white and allowing the story to unravel and tell itself in time. I also loved how much balls the game has. Knowing that it was going to anger some fans, but trusting that those who understood it would leave an everlasting impression on them for years, if not more to come. It certainly has for me. So, to break that down, mail-in ballots for the final slew. 0 for Yakuza.
Would like a word with you.
We've got 1 for Final Fantasy. We've got 4 for Last of Us. and we've got
one
for
Hades. Wow.
Okay.
So I do. What I want to say regarding what was it? Was it Peter?
Spence.
I forgot. That's
Peter
why I want to say it now.
Peter Spectacular.
Peter, yeah.
What, he said something, and I forgot what it was.
He said he likes it.
He said the entire game feels like an exercise in empathy that resonated with me in a personal way, so that when the final fight was gearing up, all I wanted was for Elliot, both Abby and Ellie, to walk away.
That wasn't it. It was the person before that.
You're not fighting him. You're fighting us.
It was definitely Peter's. He said it subverted his expectations in a satisfying way while making him challenge his own personal biases against characters who have, quote, done me wrong.
That wasn't it. That wasn't it. I don't remember now, but fuck. See,
it don't matter. There's just a number on the board.
I mean, you can still make an anti-argument against it if you want. I'll put 60 seconds on the clock.
No. Because I don't want to sound like I'm against.
I mean, dude. I mean, I'm against. Against Final Fantasy, and I am against. I don't want to say I'm against Yakuza, but I have not played Yakuza, so it's hard for me to be for it.
Do we want to do a roundtable vote?
Here's what I want to say.
I don't want to do voting.
No, here's what I want to say about Final Fantasy VII Remake. So start the clock.
Start the clock.
Final Fantasy VII Remake, similar to Red Dead Redemption 2. Whether you like that game or not, you can I think that anyone can say that there will never be a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 again. There will never be a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake again. It has redefined what a remake can be in games. It has it is a beautiful game. Granted, there are some rendering issues, 100%. The narrative, again, it's a narrative that is somehow able to reward new and returning players of that series who love those characters. The gameplay is diverse and in depth and very flexible in what you want to do. You can have a character that's normally a brawler like Tifa do magic, and that's perfectly okay. And they do it in the ways that are respectful to the original game while still having a modern take on a combat system that has great aspects of Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy 13, Kingdom Hearts. It's phenomenal. It is able, I know a lot of people don't like the side quests, but at the very least, the side quests make you care about the characters that are living in the Sector 7 slums, so that when the plate does fall, they aren't these random characters you're running into. You know these characters because you helped these characters out previously, so it gives more meaning to when that moment happens in the remake. Again, the ending, regardless of what you think of the. Okay, sure.
I mean, cool, sorry. You seemed like you reached a good point anyway.
Sure.
Please. I want to say something about 3 games.
You can step to the plate, give you your 90 seconds, go for all of them. You obviously don't have to rant about. If anybody wants to,
I have 2 things to say about Final Fantasy, Last of Us, and Hades.
All right, clock has started. Go.
Pretty fast. Final Fantasy is a game with fantastic, addicting combat that constantly evolves the more enemies that you meet and the more that you can customize your own characters. That being said, its narrative is not exciting. Throughout the majority of it, it has its set piece moments, but from moment to moment, story beat to story beat, I cannot remember a majority of it except for its highlights. It does have highlights. They are just far between because there is much filler. Its side quests are boring, and now that I have reached the end, I am very excited to finish it because I'm sure what will come next will be much more exciting than everything that I've gone through so far. Why did I just drive on a highway for 40 minutes? Last of Us Part 2.
Why was that 40 minutes?
What? Well, you're killing his time. Go for
Last of Us Part 2. This game's lived rent-free in my mind ever since I finished playing it. No game I've played has ever affected me as emotionally as The Last of Us 2 has. It is agony, it is suffering, it is joy, and it is pain. It is the most human story that I have seen in a video game, and by my definition, human is destruction. It is the most destructive game that I have ever played, and it deserves high honors for being a wonderful, gut-wrenching, heart-destroying piece of art. Hades is just perfect.
So there's 2 things I want to say. One, Hades is not perfect. 2, even Chris, who gave it a 10, said it's not perfect. So it's not perfect. So
I gave it a 10 though. I gave it a 10.
Read my review again, man.
Regarding Last of Us Part 2, I remember what someone said that I think is completely false. One thing that Charlie and I think Otto talked about earlier is that I think with The Last of Us 1, which I do not like, I notoriously do not like. I think it was it benefited by being a video game. I do not think The Last of Us Part 2 had any sort of benefit for being a video game. It could have been a TV series. It could have been a TV series.
Sure. It doesn't matter. Its story is so good that it doesn't matter what medium it even exists in.
Yes,
I can genuinely say
it's game of the year. It's game of the year. It should be a game.
It's game of the year, not TV shows of the year.
It's not medium of the year. It's game of the year. I don't think it takes advantage of being a video game with its narrative or anything about really. It could have been a TV show.
I've been moderating for a few minutes. Can I step to the plate and rant for a second? And more, and mine is with more pitch.
I can put a timer up.
I've got it going.
Okay.
I don't trust this timer.
We're gonna go back and forth. Here's my pitch. We're gonna go back and forth around in circles forever and ever and ever, and we're gonna debate the merits of Final Fantasy, Last of Us, Yakuza, Hades, and so on. I think we need to unite around a single game. I think we need to unite around the single game that we are most across the board, even speaking for the people who brought in mail-ins. I know that there are plenty of other people who mailed in votes who this game is second and third on their list, and it's Hades. Hades is our staff's game of the year. We've talked all year. We're plugged in with one another. We know what everybody likes on the staff. Yes, we have talked here, and yes, we have done 4 of these discussion videos, and this is the 5th, and we've been talking for 4.5 hours. Hades is our sites game of the year, though. Like, for DualShockers for 2020, it has been Hades. Hades is the one game that we have all agreed in unison is great and is deserving of endless praise and is fantastic. And I think we should... I don't even know if it's my personal favorite game between this and Last of Us. These are the 2 I'm torn between personally, based on what's left on the list. But I'm also not going to lie to myself, because I know that what the staff thinks, and I know what we all think as a group, and I think Hades should be the site's game of the year, and I think we all need to just agree on that notion, and I know we are not going to, and I know this is not going to be the end of it at all, but I am putting that out there that I think we just need to come around Hades, and I think we need to make it official and
counter that and say that there isn't particularly anyone on the staff that doesn't like Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I don't.
Are you kidding?
I like it is like...
I think for me personally, like, I haven't played Yakuza yet, but I think of the 3 remaining games, Hades, Last of Us, and Final Fantasy, I'd probably put the lowest and of the 3. And not that it's a bad game by any means. I think it is a great game. Like, I enjoyed the story and everything. That I just think, personally, I think Hades and what Last of Us Part 2 are doing in very different ways, I think resonate a little more with me than Final Fantasy. But again, I think they're all phenomenal games. I would just probably put Final Fantasy the lowest of the 3.
Yeah, I would do the same.
For me, this is the last I'm going to say about it. If we get rid of Final Fantasy, it is what it is. I think that as a video game and for the medium, I don't think that anything really. I think Hades is like a fantastic roguelike. I think that The Last of Us Part 2 does some really interesting things narratively, but I just don't think that. I just think that Final Fantasy VII Remake is like the most hopefully unique, great game that came out this year. Again, I just don't think that. I don't know. It stands out because, again, like, it's just not like any other game that came out this year, and not just genre, or narrative, or just like as a whole package on what a game can be. And that's what I think should be game of the year, is something that stands out in that sense. And that's
Final Fantasy is going to have at least 1 more, probably 2 more tries to win game of the year.
Probably 4.
And I don't think it's going to win.
4.
I think this is going to be it.
16. That looks cool.
No, I was talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake. We know we have at least 1 more remake. Probably
people are just going to be like,
2.
"Oh, it's more Final Fantasy. Who cares?" That's what people are going to say.
That's literally
Charlie.
Yeah,
let's go to Charlie.
So this has nothing to do with any game in particular, and I know we've kind of committed to not doing a vote, but I think it might help if we just went one by one and just said outright what our number 1 of the 4 games remaining is, just to take inventory of where we all are.
Yeah, that's what I meant by like a vote, just so that we know. Like,
I'm fine with that to read the room.
All right.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna go left to right on my screen. Cam Hawkins. Camilo.
Hades.
Charlie.
Final Fantasy.
Yeah. Chris.
Hades.
Okay, I think I'm on the Hades train, obviously, given my rant. Mario.
Last of Us Part 2.
Mike.
Last of Us Part 2.
Otto.
Hades.
Okay. Ricky.
Wow. What? Okay.
That's what he just said.
Ricky.
Yeah, I think for the site, I'm going to say Hades.
Ryan.
Hades.
Okay, Scott.
Trails of Cold Steel 4.
All right.
Thank you. I needed that. I really did.
All right. So here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna officially wipe Yakuza.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard.
Can I just say
they can't do it back to back? The dynasty will not happen.
This was
Ricky. You have not. Yeah, you have not talked about it though. Please do so.
But that is Yakuza Like a Dragon is probably my number 5 game of all time. So it is incredible. It has some of the best side quests any game has ever had. It's got the best story Yakuza's ever had. It has the best cast of characters of the year. The open world is without comparison this year, in my opinion. It is the best game of the year by far. Like, it's not even close between Yakuza and Hades for me. But, yeah. You all are wrong, so that's fine.
This was the one year that I couldn't use my same argument about Yakuza. It was like, Yakuza is literally the same all across. This is the one year you guys fucked it up.
Okay, so let me bring this all back. Okay.
Fuck, we're in the top 3.
Yeah, we are in top 3, and I'm not breaking because I think we're about to actually get this thing done.
All right.
I think.
I'll give you 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're not doing the vote thing, but as far as temperature of the room, it seems like it's Hades and Last of Us, especially when we incorporate the Melons from Last of Us, and then Final Fantasy is 3rd at this point. So I don't know what we want to do with that. I don't know if we do want to officially put it into a lockdown between Last of Us and Hades, or what.
Yeah, I'm so on the fence between Last of Us and Hades, and The Last of Us isn't even on my top 10, just because I know people on this site and what they think about that game. And like, I don't like any other Naughty Dog games, and I didn't like. I talked to Mike a lot when I was playing this, and I hated all of Ellie's part.
Who's even saying that? Oh, okay.
It's true.
But once Abby came into the picture, and she's like Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2, just this, like super badass.
Speaking about language right now.
Like the game went to another level for me. Like the gameplay was fun for the first time. She's awesome. I don't care about Ellie. I don't care about Joel. I didn't play the first game. I watched a YouTube video and thought it looked bad. So
it is.
Wow. So like,
it is.
You chaotic man, Ricky.
It is not in my top 10.
I'm
but
shaving that beard.
I could back it if I need to. But also, I think Hades is,
Again,
I'll say
Hades. I'm trying to unite us so we all leave here feeling
I'm gonna
good.
say this about Last of
Hades is
Us.
the one we're all feeling good about and have good vibes toward.
I'll say right now that if Final Fantasy drops out, I'm going Team Last of Us. Like, you can, like, I'm not changing. You cannot change my mind.
I'm going Hades.
I'm Team Hades if Final Fantasy's gone. Okay. But I do want to.
I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, if that were to happen, I would, like, I think Hades is a great game. Nothing about that game, though, screams game of the year for me.
Here's what I will say, and I'm going to say this because I want to say this about Last of Us, and I want to compare it to a game that tried to do a next gen on last gen consoles, which Cyberpunk looks like trash. Fucking Last of Us Part 2 looks like it should be on the PS5. It looks like it fundamentally should be there.
Yeah.
It is a technical marvel on the PS4.
Yeah. So yeah, like for me, like
more fun to play.
It's way more fun to play. It has Metal Gear Solid stealth.
Like I have my issue. I have like quite a bit of issues with The Last of Us Part 2, if I'm being honest. Like I would say more than Hades, but like the good of The Last of Us Part 2 like outshines that for me. Like the technical, like again, it's a technical masterpiece.
I'm only laughing because if I went back in time and told you at the end of it all, you were a Last of Us person for Game of the Year 2020, you personally would find that very funny.
Yeah, I know. But like, again, I like, it's a technical marvel. Like, there are things I really like about its narrative. Again, there are some things I really do not like about its narrative.
Sure.
But I just think that it's just a more impressive game as a whole. Despite it, like me saying that it could be a TV show, I really do think that. But like, I think that still, with it being a video game, just like the technicality behind it, the mechanics are, and I fundamentally like do not like Naughty Dog very much. Like, I really don't. Like, I did not like Uncharted 4. Like, Lost Legacy was pretty good. Like, I didn't like love it, but I thought it was pretty good. But like, and I did not like The Last of Us. Like, the past 3 games I've been very meh on, but The Last of Us Part 2 like is like, I really enjoyed overall, despite my issues with it. So, and yeah, with Hades, like, again, I think it's a great game, but just nothing stands out for me. Like,
hold on. So if this is the conversation we're having, are we officially killing Final Fantasy?
I feel like we're just outvoted. I just feel like we're outvoted, and it just is what it is.
I think so.
Before we kill it off, I want to put this out there. So I think Mikey is the one who said this, but Last of Us 2. And it's been echoed over and over and over again. Last of Us 2 has been a massively incredible and spectacular technical marvel. We expected Final Fantasy VII Remake to be technically impressive. We expected it to be beautiful. We've all seen the reveal trailer where it's like this gorgeous kind of like weird, vaguely fan servicey kind of cinematic thing. But what's so goddamn impressive about that game is the fact that it is able to take a script that is not only not really, that hasn't aged that well, but it's not good. The original Final Fantasy script is not that good, especially the beginning, in my opinion. And it takes that and it turns it into something that's genuinely impressive because, like I said earlier, I had that thing where I talked about the 3 pillars of Final Fantasy VII's narrative and how it's able to spin it all into a whole completely different thing. And the fact of the matter is, Last of Us and Hades, while they're both able to accomplish something that is so unbelievably impressive for those specific things that they are, I don't think that anything has or will about those games impress me even in a way that's even close to the way Final Fantasy VII was able to impress me. Because I'm not even really a big fan of that game.
And you're saying like more as like Final Fantasy VII, just like towards gaming as whole, not just like a genre or anything like that, or like a specific part of a game, but like just like, is that what you're saying, Charlie?
Could you rephrase that?
Like like with what you say, like what's great about Hades is like it's more of just like as a roguelike, and then like what like The Last of Us does with its narrative, but you're saying like what Final Fantasy VII does is like just more of just gaming in general, like doesn't matter what genre, or like what are you saying?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I'm just saying that like we are talking about how impressive each thing is, and I think it's important to state that like I do agree with what you said as well, Cam, but I also think it's important to acknowledge the fact that like while talking about how impressive every single thing is, Final Fantasy VII could have been a lot worse, a lot less impressive, and a lot more boring and not just Nomura-esque, but full of anime-style bullshit than it was. And I think it ultimately, like, it defied my expectations. I was someone who was pissed when Cloud got added to Smash. That's how connected I am to Final Fantasy. Like, and granted, I was 15 at the time. We've all made bad decisions, but I think it goes to show that it's able
like
to
3 years ago.
bring multiple times. Wait, what?
I said no.
He said that was only like 3 years ago, and you said you were 15 at the time.
Yeah. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that, like, I think looking at what things as a media, like looking at the games as a medium, and looking at the game as a microcosm of itself, I think that the on a technical level, while it is also impressive, I think looking at it in a broader sense, acknowledging how impressive it is regardless, is something that I think hasn't necessarily been done enough, because like me and Cam have both kind of gone into like a lot of the granularity of things, and we've all talked at length about specifically the narrative and the combat. And I think talking about how impressive it is that they were able to recontextualize, rewrite, and remake, sorry, no pun intended, a game that was originally not that impressive to begin with on a writing level, and just bring it to something that it really wasn't before, I think should not be understated to the point that it has so far.
I have like 2 quick sentences, one for both Final Fantasy VII and one for Last of Us. In this crazy year that we've had, I genuinely had fun playing Final Fantasy VII Remake and exploring that world. Last of Us Part 2, while technically impressive, just stressed me the fuck out and made me feel dirty. Like with the things you're forced to do.
Yeah. That was going to jump off that.
That's my main thing. Like, I genuinely was able to have a lot of fun and escape from the crappy shit going on in 2020 with Final Fantasy VII Remake, where Last of Us just kind of forced me to do really bad things and stress me out. So
to go off your point there, I agree with everything that you're saying. At the same time, it fundamentally made me understand humans better in 2020 and how fucking stupid we are and how we can't even listen to common sense. And that's why I enjoy that game specifically, because it made me understand this year even better the fact that it came out and why we can't have this have a single conversation as to like why we should do things rationally, because people act irrationally, passionately.
I'm just a masochist.
There you
go. Okay, hold on. So I know I brought this to. So we're deleting Final Fantasy though, right? But we're
fuck it. No, I'm just kidding.
I thought Charlie's thing was like a eulogy for it. Before
one thing I just wanted, like, one last thing I want to say, and like again, like if it's gone, it's gone. Like I feel like everyone's kind of made up their mind. Is that like this is a remake of one of the best like and iconic games ever made, and not just JRPGs but games. And there was so many ways that this could have just been terrible, but it's not. But it's not.
It's the first part of a remake of an entire game. Let's.
But it's still like
it's still solid. And Cam's it's still a super solid game.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh, Chris, you're talking. We couldn't hear you. Chris, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. I was just saying, it made it to top 3. Like, that's not to be understated. There, as you say, I agree. There are a million ways it could have gone wrong. No one was really expecting it to be as good as it was, I think. Mm-hmm. It's commendable what they've done, and I agree with everything that has been said, barring a few things about the ending, as I've said. But ultimately, I had to get my shot in. Yes, like to be removed at this point is not to undersell it. That's all I want to say.
Jumping off that, yeah, like I remember when we were at E3 2019 and like you guys went to go play it, Cam, and like you were obviously excited to play it, but I don't think you really knew until you actually played it that it was like, that it was going to be good. Like I feel like there was definitely cautious optimism for the game in a sense. So yeah, the fact that it turned out this well is good. And okay, now it's gone for good, I guess. I feel like that's the consensus we came to. So Last of Us and Hades. Yeah, I mirror what Scott said though about this game. This game sucks. This game's miserable. This game is hate-filled and just makes you feel dirty and gross by the end. The time you get to the end of it, and I think the story that it tells over the course of that, and I think that's fine. I think there is room for that kind of media, and I like that kind of stuff from time to time. But man, if it wasn't a downer on top of what has already been a shit year. And I'm not saying that is anything that should necessarily even discount it. Heck, maybe if a terrible game is something that should be awarded Game of the Year in a largely terrible year, yeah, sure, let's do it. Even though if we were being very accurate, Resident Evil 3 probably should be Game of the Year.
Oh, gosh, I love you.
Anyway,
I swear to God, I don't want to hear any games other than these two.
No, I think it should. I think it takes 5 minutes to understand why Hades is good. I really do. That game starts, you get to the title screen, they throw you into a run immediately, and you are introduced to the mechanics, you were introduced to the gameplay, and within 5 minutes, like seriously, I booted that game up after hearing everybody rant about that game for weeks and months, and I was like, okay, let's see if this is actually good. And it takes mere minutes to understand, wow, mechanically, this game is awesome. And then we already talked about how it just builds from there, and it builds excellently. Last of Us, it is like you have to see the full context of that thing in order to then come away with some sort of takeaway, whether good or bad. Like you have to see it through to its conclusion. And to do that, you have to get through some grim, dire stuff. and that is fine. But I think it is very inaccessible for a game that is so accessible. It is inaccessible in some ways with how it presents its story and its narrative. Hades, I just think is so. I just think mechanic. Gappy Goopy. Somebody brought up the Jake video, the Gappy Goopy Goblin Brain thing, and like Hades is that for me. Hades is just like gameplay. Gameplay mechanics still down into its purest form for the most part. Yes, there are things around there, but like when you are in the middle of a run, you are in the middle of a run, and it is pure gameplay, and that is it. And you're not really doing anything else.
To tip off of you saying the accessibility of the game, I don't want to play this game, and I think it's great. I don't think I can play these games. I don't play these games. That's
fine.
But I just say
roguelikes aren't for everybody. I have friends who don't like roguelikes, and I'm like, you need to play this. Trust me. And they're like, sorry, I just can't play roguelikes, and that's fine. Yeah. But I will say this is not really my favorite genre either, if I'm being totally honest, and I still think it should win.
So Hades, something that else that I will say about Hades is that it is very not miserable, and it is actually kind of like a joy to play because even when you die, you basically like the game loop allows you to just meet these characters again, and it sort of incentivizes you to keep going. So even when you fail a run, I'm sorry?
And they're so happy to see you generally.
Yeah. And then, even when you fail a run, you get to sort of like have these like narrative experiences that not only build the world more, they build your relationship with these characters. And that in itself is a mechanic in the game that just offers more and then offers more more narrative as it goes on. I think just as from a gameplay standpoint, I think it's solid and just like it does everything that I want a roguelike to do, and it does everything like remarkably well, and just there's so much room for just your own like run. Like no run is necessarily going to be exactly the same as the other, and that just provides so much variety to the game and like its entire runtime. I put maybe 50 to 60 hours into Hades, and I adored it. And just I always wanted to know like where the story was going. I adored pretty much every one of the characters and just getting to know them, and everyone was hot for no reason, and I enjoyed that. And and it was a good time. Just like it was just like it felt good. It's just even like when I think Logan said it before, even when you roll those credits and like it feels great to roll the credits, and there's still more that the game is throwing at you, and every single mechanic is just like remarkably well done, and it's probably my favorite Supergiant game. Like, and I've loved just about every game that they've made. I'm a huge massive fan of theirs, and like
that's time, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, we just
sorry, I just want to jump in. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, let's come to a decision within the next 15 minutes.
Yeah, I just want to jump in really quick on Hades, and just I think like what a lot of other people have said. Like I think I'm not really someone that tends to enjoy roguelikes for the most part. Like I never was really a huge fan of them. Like I just didn't really find the loop of repeating runs over and over again that fun. It just kind of felt like, oh, if I died this run, I kind of wasted my time. Like for me, Hades solved a lot of, or not necessarily solved, but it just like it really like honed a lot of the things I don't normally enjoy in roguelikes and made me understand why they're fun. And I think really like, I think Charlie brought up later how it sort of has like a carrot on the stick, where it's just like, it has a good narrative that it doles out to you progressively throughout each run. And, the gameplay especially, I think it really has like a lot more depth than I was expecting it to, because really like each run you find sort of new builds and combinations that you can, and there were a lot of powers that like I necessarily didn't like picking up when I first started the game, that as I got through progressive runs, I was like, okay, I understand what I could do with this build, how I can make different combinations and make it fun and make progress through the game. And that's really, I think, what I loved about Hades is like I went into this game with kind of low expectations, not knowing what to expect, but when I played it, I really kind of fell hard for it, and just the story and the gameplay, like everything just worked so well together, and I really loved the hell out of it, pretty much.
In Last of Us, you shoot dogs. In Hades, you pet dogs.
You don't have to shoot the dogs. You're a bad player if you kill the dogs.
Chris raised his hand, but Mike also said something.
No, Chris can go.
Yeah, like if I get a 90 seconds, I can talk bad about Last of Us. But the point is that I don't think anyone here has had a bad experience with Hades.
That's exactly what I was going to say about what I was going to say.
This is what Logan said ages ago. Like site-wide, we kind of know where it is, and we know it's kind of been gravitating towards it. So I think, I'm with that. It's like no one has had a bad experience. We may not have had the best, maybe not for the year, in general, for the genre, anything like that, but it's been a good time. It's a wholesome, vibrant, fun game that does a lot more than the average roguelike, even if mechanically it might not be as in-depth as some. It adds on in so many different ways and adds to it that it's just, transcends what is normally the genre staple. So, yeah, I think we'd be crazy to give it to anything else,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry.
I still want to say, like, I know that we're, like, not talking about votes or whatever, but we do have 4 other people on staff that are in favor of.
So you bring up a good point. I've already crunched those numbers, and if we're doing what goes with the last tally, it is going to be 9 in favor of Hades and 6 in favor of Last of Us, because it's Cam, you, and Mario, and then there is Cam, Charlie, Chris, me, Otto, Mike, Scott.
No, Mike, did you for
Last of Us too?
Yeah, you.
Sorry. No. All right. So then it is 7 to 8 in Hades' favor.
Sounds about right.
Like I said, like I'm willing to flip for Hades.
Sorry, it is 9 in favor of Hades. It is Camilo, Charlie, Chris, me. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, it's 9 for Hades. 9 for Hades, 7 for Last of Us. If we're going purely off,
we're gonna blame Nick for giving it to Final Fantasy.
I mean,
so if we are doing a pure vote thing, then it's Hades. But I also just think I don't think it needs to come down to that. This is the thing I am trying to preach, is that it does not need to be a winners and losers thing. It quite literally should just be a matter of, if we give Hades Game of the Year, it is just very obviously the one game all year long, as we have all talked about video games on a day-by-day basis, as we've done in the Discord. It has been very, very clear for months since that game entered 1.0 that Hades is the one that we're like, hey, everybody play this. And largely everybody on the staff played it, and everybody came away like, hey, this game is great. I think people are in very different I think people have been in very different for and against camps on every other game on this list.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Definitely.
So I just think it makes sense.
I agree. I think the general consensus is just with Hades. Mm-hmm. It's not nearly as divisive as any of these other titles. We all might have had our problems with it time again, but like Chris said, it's
the thing is, like, I don't even know if it is like everybody has obviously talked about the game that is their favorite over the course of the night, and I don't know how many people this was their number one, but it was absolutely a lot of. Was it okay? Yep. It's a lot of people's. If it's not their number one, it is. I think once these top 10s come out, it will be by far in the most people's top 3 or top 5. And to that end, I just think it makes.
It was even over. Hades was higher than Yakuza for me.
How dare you?
That's it.
Traitor.
That's it. Fucking end the video.
You know, I love it.
So is that it? Are we done then?
I mean, people are in favor of it. Like,
sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I haven't had anything really negative to say about Hades, and that is it. I can't say anything.
Here's the thing: we gave it a 10 too in our review, so like that tracks with how our review on the game went. Not that that needs to be a perfect science by any means, because it's all subjective, but like at least that lines up on that front, I guess, with one of the 10s we gave out this year.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, that's Chris's opinion. That's fine. And but I think that just like, you know, we've already decided, but just for me, it's just like, I just never felt or got anything from either playing the game or from this discussion that made me like, similar to Yakuza, just like, I don't see anything that like screams game of the year for me personally. But like, I do think, again, like, I think it's a great game. So I'm just.
Before we, let's not get into the weeds with arguments for or against other games.
I'm flipping. I'm about to say it. Supergiant, I've been a huge fan since Bastion, since the Xbox 360 days. Bastion's still one of my favorite games. To me, it's game of the year this year, because fuck every other game. Bastion's fantastic. They consistently have made fantastic games going forward. I'm happy that they're still in this conversation. So I will flip, and I'll probably see Hades.
They're 4 for 4.
You don't even need to flip, I think.
And they're just like a nice developer company, and not kind of like.
I haven't heard one major
this game
shitty
used
thing.
to be a journo. So
yeah.
Is anyone switching to Predator Hunting Grounds? Or
yes, I am. Here we go.
Okay, all right.
I'm glad we got it mentioned because it was in the pre-show.
Here we go,
Fuckers. That's going up on something.
All right. So that's it. DualShockers Game of the Year for 2020 is Hades.
Yes. Thank you.
It only took 5 hours. Quite literally.
Nailed it.
Holy shit.
God damn.
So I can wrap us up here quickly. Obviously, this is our Game of the Year. Cool. This is our most prestigious honor for DualShockers for 2020. But we've got a lot of other awards coming out. And if something here did not win, especially, I mean, speaking to everybody here, but if something did not win that you wanted to win here, you can definitely win another category because we've got a whole lot of categories that are going to be going out in our extensive Game of the Year article, which will be live by the time this video is being seen, right? I think. I don't know.
We're gonna announce all the Game of the Year winners on January 4th.
Okay, so yeah, by the time you're watching this video, that has been decided, I think, unless this video goes up earlier for some reason. But yeah, go check out the site. Go check out the full list of winners from this year. Go check out and see what won the Reader's Choice winner, which I imagine will be something PlayStation related. If I had to guess, I bet the readers vote Final Fantasy. That's my guess. But anyway, that's it for the whole team here. And for me, this will probably be the last piece of DualShockers content I appear on for a bit, at least in this.
Yeah, I can't do another Fast and Furious ending thing. So
no, I'm not doing that. But I'm just gonna say thanks for joining us on this whole Game of the Year 2020 thing. Again, this has been the big discussion here today, but we've done 4 of these, and I hope this has been enjoyable, at least for anybody who has decided to tune into any of these. I don't know if you guys want to do this again next year or not. I've personally enjoyed the format to a degree. It's nice to get the whole team together every couple months and talk about video games in an extensive manner. And so, yeah, I hope that's been a fun thing over the course of the year. But yeah. This will probably be the last thing I personally am on for, especially hosting in this regard, probably forever. So thanks for the fun this year, and thanks for everything else. But yeah, check out DualShockers.com, follow DualShockers on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and congrats to Supergiant on winning Game of the Year. So congrats. Until then, everybody have a good day or evening or whatever, and we'll see you back around here.
2021.
As we go into 2021, which is going to be even crazier. So we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Final Fantasy VII was robbed.